Yeah.
I'm calling to order the meeting of the Design Review Committee for December of 2022, the last meeting of the year. And
We have
I'd
roll
like to
call.
have a roll call, please. Yes,
Yes. Chair Kavanaugh,
here.
Joy Cully,
Here?
Brian Deputy, absent, Jennifer Darren Hess,
Here.
Esther Jacobson Bates.
Here.
Okay, Joy, would you lead us in the
Hand on your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You've had an opportunity to look over the agenda.
Yes.
Everything, any discussion? The numbering of on the agenda is a
Yeah.
little
Odd.
confusing, because, public communication it should be 3, I think, and then we have the number 4A, it's not a big deal, but number 4A through D would be the action items, and then actually 4E is that discussion item relating to but otherwise, we know what we're talking about. It might get confusing if we talk about going to, item 4A or whatever, but anyway. But otherwise, I don't have any, personally don't have any reason to amend the order of the agenda. Anybody else have it?
No, but I do have just a couple of minor comments on the minutes that are just kind of
That's coming
typo
up.
things.
That's
Yeah.
coming up. I'll accept a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
Motion to accept the agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye,
I.
4-0. 4-0-1, I guess. Okay. Now we have 2 items under the consent agenda. One is the approval of the minutes, but you have some comment on that, so let's just go ahead and
Pull it out.
Pull it out.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, we'll just talk about it.
All right. So just a couple minor things on the item F. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Fifth paragraph down, grand opening sign and spoke about ensuing. It should be ensuring
Now, what's your, you're on F?
here.
Oh, I see, okay, got it.
All right. And then
Yeah,
one other minor.
Ensuring instead of ensuing, okay?
Correct. And one other minor thing on page 5, item I, last paragraph, third line down, you'll see it says Wayne's Code. I think this is the minutes service, so obviously that should be Wayne's Coding.
Yeah. Okay,
But the contents, as I read them, are correct, other than those minor
okay, good checks.
typos.
Okay, with those, any other comments? If not, I'm open to motion to approve the minutes with the corrections noted.
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay, moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Signify by saying
Aye.
aye. Aye,
Aye.
okay, 4-0-1, thank you. Okay, we also have, I guess since we've split out the approval of the minutes from the consent items, let's discuss the other consent item, which is the Planning and Building Committee Division Projects. Item 2B, and just a comment, it shows that over the last couple of years, some of these projects go back further than that, obviously, but there's been a terrific amount of activity in our city to build, expand, and improve the physical plan of the city. And I think it also shows that the staff has been busy. And and during a challenging time, it's a remarkable amount of projects underway, so I think that's terrific. Any other comments or observations about the listing of current projects? I'll entertain a motion to accept the report.
I'll motion to accept the report as presented.
Okay,
Second?
moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you. And 401. Okay, now the opportunity exists for members of the public to speak on items that are not on the agenda. Anyone in the room have any items that they like to speak about not on the agenda? Okay. I see there are, oh, yes.
I have a couple general questions regarding,
Just so it's
Sure.
recorded, make sure the
my
mic
name
is
is
on.
Harlan Meineke from the Mulhall Cottage.
Yes.
Which is a new store for us. And I have a question regarding, we have our existing Mulhall and we're not sure what we're going to do with it. It looks like we're going to continue that one as well. But if we decide not to, I'd like to have a really good definition of what's involved in having a going out of business sale. I don't know if, I'm in the right
You know,
place.
you probably, I know you're here for other business
Yeah.
that does relate to us, but I think the best place to talk about that may be in the Chamber of Commerce.
Okay,
That's outside the scope of our
Okay.
review, I believe. Hello? You had
I
something to add?
did. I have talked to him, Mr. Moniki.
yes.
Yeah, sorry, about the regulations in the zoning code regarding signs for sales. I think part of the concern is that it only allows it for 7 consecutive days.
Okay.
And so if he's planning on doing it for longer, what is the process for it? That kind of stuff. So
there
we
is
have talked a
city-
little
There
bit.
is city code that kicks in on that then.
Yeah, but
I didn't know that either, so that's great.
But beyond that, there's not really requirements about closing your business in the code. But
and-
the signage, it's
Yeah, and
in
the
there.
city, again, the Chamber of Commerce may have some notions about that give you
Okay.
tips on doing that and publicizing it and so forth.
Well, we're not at a point of definitely saying yes or
Right.
no, but I just thought I'd ask.
Okay, well, we'll look forward to hearing you
All right.
later, okay, when we're on that item in the agenda. Thank you.
I assume also if they were to apply for some signage, it probably wouldn't go through Design Review Board, just because it's like a temporary permit or,
Yeah,
Right.
those are over the counter.
yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Good-
so,
Good point, that's a
Subject
good
to
point to
staff.
clarify.
yeah, talk to city staff, I would suggest as
Yeah.
well. Sounds like Sophia's the one to talk to.
Yeah, we've talked about it. I think the more broad thing is when we're reviewing the sign regulations in the future, looking in that section of the code for more specifics on the signs, because it's very broad, but also the potential of extending it, or if you want changes to what's in there and you take it to the design review committee rather than having staff approve it. It's just, we're planting the
Okay.
seed for y'all
Yeah.
for the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Okay, are there anybody in Zoom land? I see we have a couple participants in Zoom, Susan B. and Sue B. Apparently, though, neither have an interest in saying anything, speaking now about an item that doesn't appear on the agenda. So we move on now to our sign applications. The first, staff, would you give us an overview of the item related to the Peasants Deli and Market?
Yes,
on
sir.
Atterdag Road.
So item 3A is to review and approve the proposed wall sign and hanging or under canopy / arcade sign for Peasants Deli and Market at 473 Atterdag Road. The applicant is expanding their current location into a retail space that existed there. And they're wanting to put additional signage up to identify that new location. We did review the code, and it looks like both signs adhere to the requirements in the code. For the wall sign, they are planning on putting it on the blank wall. If you visited the site, that building is very interesting in how it's oriented. And the location that they're taking up has a bare wall that they're planning on putting the wall sign on, which I think will identify it very nicely. And like I said, it meets the requirements of the code. It's within the size limit. They're not planning on going over the 8 inches for the letter height. And it is within the square footage of the building, or the allowable signage, excuse me. And yeah, as you know, as we've run into many times, the signs match their branding, but not necessarily the old world style of the village area. And they're not proposing any illumination for that sign. And then their other sign is is a hanging or under canopy arcade sign that they're going to hang under the eave above the entrance on Copenhagen. And like I said, this sign also adheres to the requirements in the code.
Okay.
I just had a question. I'm just a bit confused. I thought this was the deli that's on Copenhagen Drive, right? Because it lists the Atterdag address of the other location.
I had to check it. That building is actually Atterdag, the address for the building. Because I also thought it was Copenhagen too and got very confused.
So
Yeah.
although their specific storefront.
storefront is on
fronts
Copenhagen.
Copenhagen.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
It's like the building of the Spice Merchant. Its address
Yeah.
is Copenhagen, but the front
Right.
door is on Atterdag.
Oh,
There
so
was
it's the
that-
opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that bakery is in that space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, the French,
Yeah.
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 Okay. Any other,
I would
Question.
present a motion to accept it as presented, if nobody has any objections.
Yeah.
is there a second? I have a couple
Sorry, I'm
comments. but-
sorry.
No, I have a
Go
couple comments, but that's fine.
Well, I'll second it.
Okay, great. A couple comments I have. One, I appreciate the efforts, I'm sure, of staff and the efforts of the applicant to make sure that the design submitted are within all the constraints of the city code, and that's important. The one area which, again, it's an area that kind of that I have concern about, and it comes up over and over again, where we talk about the type fonts, the lettering style, and the code refers to old world lettering. What does old world lettering mean? And old world, and so we say then that it's not old world lettering, but we prefer it, but it's not required, or something like that. And when I think of old world lettering, I was thinking about these English ornate. So I got on the impeccable research tool of Wikipedia, and this is what it said. I'm going to pass out, or maybe I should, yeah, I will. I'll just go ahead and pass this out. It copies. Oh, wait, I need one. There we go. Thank you. It's not so complicated as that, but it is fonts with serifs. And that have a moderate contrast between thick and thin. I think people, when we say old world, I think they may be talking about old English they may be thinking of old English fonts or something that is hardly readable. And in fact, it's not so complicated as that. And I know, later on, with the draft ale house, is sans serif. And, I don't think it's asking that much. I mean, I don't want to have people adopt a style that looks like it's like Old English and hard to decipher because of the ornateness or whatever. But what they say is old style typeface isn't nearly as complicated as that. That's all. And I think it's useful for people to understand what it isn't as well as what it is. That's all. I'm just.
I think that's a good point. I mean, I'm a graphic designer, and probably if you had said, what's an old world font, I wouldn't have said any of the, I mean, now that I'm looking at these, I'm familiar with these fonts, and I would have said, yeah, that falls in.
Yeah.
But I, like you, would have said, oh, like an Old English, like something very ornate. My thoughts on the subject in general, as a branding person, I'm in favor of branding according to what your brand is. So I think it's a little iffy to require the old world font. That said, I think that if the city were to continue to require or to ask that, it would almost make more sense to say, here's the fonts that you can use for your signage in Solvang. You know, like you'll go to sometimes development projects, you know, strip malls or something, and even the corporations that are in those malls have to adhere to a color scheme, for instance. And it might be an In-N-Out that has a brown logo or something because that's what the you know, the developer required or the city required or whatever. So to me, if there was going to be a real push to stay in those guidelines, I personally think that then it should be some specifics and that everybody should have to adhere.
Well, I
to
think
it,
we'll have
you
an
know.
opportunity to talk about
Right.
that later this evening.
Yeah.
Probably. And that, again, it's one issue, but there's a lot of these, are we going to require it? Are we going to suggest it? And I will say, in the language that's in the draft that we're going to be discussing later, it is much more prescriptive. You know, it's much more, less tolerant, let's say. And I think that corresponds with my view, that we ought to do that if we're serious about making, you know, Solvang, 'cause, you know, we've left through some fonts that are, you know, not
Yeah.
old world, not current world, not future world, but anyway.
Yeah, lots of them.
Okay.
And
And I
I-
think that at the same time, I want to, you know, I do respect that ability to brand. And I think, Joy, you are the owner of the Spice Merchant, where you've done an excellent job of integrating your brand into the aesthetic of Solvang. And that's kind of what I would
That's a great
think is a
example.
really kind of focus going forward. And also perhaps having some examples as guidelines so that there is some clarity.
The mole
Yep.
hole is probably another good example of that, right?
Yeah.
Which we'll be talking about later.
That's
Yeah.
right. That is a good example of
Yeah.
it, too. Yeah.
Um,
right.
This also ties into the community design element, which we'll talk
Yes.
about later, but I think I put it in the staff report that we'll be having a conversation at some point about what do we take and put in the municipal code, because the municipal code is the law of Solvang. And so if we're going to say you have to do X, Y, and Z, let's say we say you have to do old world style. It's not a preferred, but you have to do it. It'd be something that we'd have to outline in the
Yeah.
code.
I think
So,
that's right. I mean, that's the
yeah.
point I would mean, because right now, that's all it says is old world style or whatever. And, you know,
There's too much, there's a lot of room for gray area.
if
Yeah.
this is, I assume it's a
Interpretation.
pretty accurate, you know, definition of old world style or something like that. And it's not nearly as punitive, but it also has, with the serifs, is just a little bit more, is less modern, I guess, or whatever.
Well,
Okay.
It'll be a good conversation that feeds into what we go on
Yeah,
with.
that's right. Okay, we have, though, before us, the proposed sign on Peasants Feast Deli. Any other comment?
Yeah, sorry, I made a
Oh,
motion.
we've got a
So soon.
motion
Yeah.
and second.
Motion
Okay,
second.
motion second?
Yeah.
Okay,
It goes to the floor or into the world.
any comments about that application from anybody else in the room or on the Zoom world? Appears not. Bring it back to the,
Should I
to the
repeat the
committee?
motion? Should I repeat the motion, just for the record?
okay, sure.
Just the motion would be to approve the signs as presented.
Okay, and that's been seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, 401.
Sorry, I'll try not to jump the gun next.
No, that's good. I appreciate that. That's good. Okay, the next item is a little complicated, perhaps, but I'm going to have our crack planning manager review that with us, U.S. Bank.
Yes. Hopefully Mark joins. He's their applicant. So you all reviewed their sign package on August 18th. And they had requested many modifications, of which y'all kind of reined it in, and required that they adhere to the standards outlined in the code. Mark, the applicant, has been approaching me over the last several months about wanting to revisit the wall sign in particular, because of executives from U.S. Bank's concern about the sizing. So what they had proposed was to stay with the 24-inch size that currently exists. I believe it says Union Bank now. They're going to change it to U.S. Bank. And you had approved that it be 10 inches, which is what the code states. So they're asking that you reconsider and allow for the modification and allow for the 24 inches of the height of the lettering. They did state, as I have in the staff report, per section 1113.7A5 of the municipal code, the DRC can approve modifications. So outside the village letter height, sorry for that misspelling, shall be limited to a maximum of 10 inches, except where it can be found that the larger letter height is consistent with building size, architecture, or setback from the public right-of-way as determined by the Design Review Committee. I drove by this weekend again after writing this, and the building is set back about 100 feet from the
It's back a
right-of-way.
ways,
And the lighting is not illuminated at night, which I think is a comment that Joy had made after a meeting on
Right.
the 18th. And so they feel that because of the setback from the public right-of-way, and I don't know if y'all noticed, but there's like a slight grade or slope down from the right-of-way.
Yeah.
They're requesting that you revisit and allow for the modification.
Yeah, and that's great. And I know that apparently they were actually interested in appealing our decision to the city council, and there's a deadline that they have to initiate that
Yes.
appeal, and they were outside that. So it comes back to us on the nature of a rehearing. I'm open to any comments people have.
Can I, sorry,
Oh,
I
yeah,
want to
please.
clarify, this is the only this is the only sign that they're proposing. Sorry.
No, that's fine.
Like I said the other day, it was a labor of love to get this out. Recommendation is not right, so I'll have to edit that. But it's, the subject is correct, the recommendation is not. It lists all their signs from the meeting on the.
Got it.
Oh, I see, okay.
Okay.
Okay, good.
All right, thanks for clarifying.
We're just talking about the one sign, and it would basically maintain the letters at the current size.
Yes.
I'll just mention, for the record, since I did say this, and I think it was the meeting before last, I had realized that it was not an illuminated sign, which was kind of a sticking point for me when we made this decision to start with. So I could be open to a larger size sign as a result, and the Union Bank sign that's there, I think,
Yeah.
looks fine.
Yeah.
I was sort of going off of the experience I had seeing the U.S. Bank in Santa Barbara and noticing how small that sign was compared to what we were talking about here,
Yep.
because I'm sure that's what the city was requiring. Anyway, that's,
Yeah,
I apologize for misunderstanding that about the illumination, because.
No, that's fine. Anybody else? have
Yeah, I
comments?
just needed to
Jennifer?
clarify, I wanted to make sure that, because I thought I understood that the letters would be slightly larger than the existing sign. The difference is that the logo piece of US Bank is equal to, or, so the actual letters, the bank part those letters will be slightly larger, I believe.
I don't get that from the graphic. Like, I get that,
You don't?
what I notice is that the logo is the 24 inches.
So the
Or the
height
2
of the
feet.
B and the K is 17 inches. What is what is the current Union Bank? That's what I thought I read it, but then I wasn't absolutely sure. So I just want to make sure you guys have it somewhere in your,
If you look at the.
This little insert,
illustration,
yeah.
You can pull that up on the screen.
Yeah, my question was a little bit along the line of Jennifer, because the current Union Bank has their kind of red U. Is
Correct.
that red U from the tallest part to the bottom, which aligns with the rest of the sign, 24 inches? Or is the U in Union Bank where it's gray, the 24 inches? And that's what
I think it's the U.
I think it's the U as well.
I think it's the U, and I think the U is the same as the US
flag.
Yes.
or-
flag
Yeah, I
logo.
agree.
And
Yeah.
what's happening is, what I'm saying is, so bank, little lowercase b and K are 17 inches. That, you can see that on
Yeah.
that sheet.
Right.
What you can't see here in the submission is in the, where it says existing Union Bank, it says existing 2 feet by 11'3", but it doesn't give you the actual letter size of the Union Bank logo on the inset.
Well, the top to the bottom of that red flag is 2 feet.
24, right. And so.
And then, and 2.5 feet wide, but yeah, on the
What-
height is,
6'11".
So the U, the capital U and the capital B on Union Bank would be closer to the size of this little case B.
Down,
If
in
you
the
follow,
bank.
right? If you follow that logic.
I see what you're saying.
Okay.
Personally, my belief, or my understanding is, and I guess it would be great if the rep was here to clarify, but, is that the flag is red, and, I'm sorry, the flag is red.
Yeah, the US
Right.
bank flag.
We're nearing the end of December, just bear with me for a minute.
Yeah.
That whole height is 24 inches, so my assumption is then that the US and the BANK would be, what is it?
Proportionately smaller.
Yeah, smaller, right.
Yeah.
So the question is, we just don't know, you said you saw 17 inches somewhere, where was?
17 inches is on the,
here.
is right here.
On this, right here.
Oh, right, got it. Okay,
But
okay.
we just don't.
I got it, I'm
what-
sorry.
Yeah, no, you're
I see
fine.
what you're
I
saying.
just don't have
I see
the
what you're saying.
equivalent. I'm guessing that it's,
Well, the US is 1 foot and 3/8 inch, just a little. So it'd be, 12 inches, 12 and 3/8 inches. It looks to me like the letters US. See that?
looks
Yeah.
like, that looks right, like
Yeah.
12
So in
inches.
other words,
And then
you're-
2 feet is from the top of that red to the bottom of the red. That's 24 inches, so that's just over half of that.
I can only assume that the Union Bank, the actual letters
I
of
mean-
Union Bank are smaller.
I
than
mean,
24
right,
inches.
in scale, it doesn't look dramatically different. But what bothers me, I'm trying to make the point, what bothers me is that we don't have the information and we're guessing. And it's fine, because it doesn't overall, you don't look at it and look in, in scale, it
Right.
looks similar.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But what
I'm just taking the
when
measurements here, I'm not
when you're
guessing.
asked to make a decision and it's inches you're talking about, I wouldn't get, in my role, I wouldn't get away with that. I wouldn't be able to present something and not give you the same dimension, so that you would know very clearly that it was either the same dimension letter height or it was slightly different. And I think that might be purposeful, frankly, because the way I know that when we're trying to get signs, if it kind of, I mean, theoretically, it looks fine.
Yep.
But I think that the request is, if you're gonna say you're gonna replace it, then you should provide the information. How
Okay, I
is it
just-
compared to the existing
Yeah.
letter size?
Okay,
My thought when I saw this was, number one, good that it is not illuminated.
Yes.
I'm very appreciative of that. Number two, I was hoping that there might be something that was between the 10 inches and the 24 inches that would scale a little bit better. I'm a little concerned about the way they show it here. Is that actually truly to scale as we see in the image with it shown on the front of the bank? So I would be more inclined to say, can we work with a 20-inch footprint for the red background and scale it down, given that we don't have all the information?
Yeah.
I was able to find the Union Bank application. Laser, can you bring it up, please?
Perfect.
Good. That'll answer our questions, I think.
oh, there we go. So what is the height of the U? Oh, yeah, there you go.
The red U is 2
It's
feet.
one,
It's two, but the
no, the
lettering
bank, the K is
is
1 foot
three
and,
3¼
So it's
yeah,
bigger.
it's 15 inches.
It's also lighter,
Yeah,
the
Right.
weight of the.
right, you're right.
the
The
letter.
Union is obviously heavier, but
Thicker.
So either way, we're talking about the largest of the logo being at 2 feet and not any higher, which we knew that already, but
Right.
now we understand that the letters are actually a bit smaller than 2 feet.
Yep, and that the overall, the width from left to right is
Is less.
basically
Yeah.
7 feet.
Yeah, the bank here
Whereas-
is 17 inches, and the
Yeah.
bank there
Yeah.
was 15 inches.
Right.
15 plus, so it's a little less than 2-inch difference.
Yeah,
And so now,
Mario.
the
Yeah.
US Bank, the flag US is 2 feet.
Right?
And the lettering throughout as small case is 1 foot and 3/8 inch. So it's right around
Right. It's
15
virtually the
inches.
Yeah.
same. Well, it's almost the same.
Yeah.
as
Yeah,
the-
it's close, you
It's
know.
close to, it's very close to the Union
So
Bank.
it's on the perception of
quarter
what
of
you
an
see
inch.
from 100 feet away as you're driving by would be comparable.
Yeah,
That makes sense. That
it
was
would be.
helpful.
It
Yep.
would be
Yep.
comparable.
thank you.
Yeah, I think it's pretty close. And what I also appreciate, I think, is the language that Sophia included, which is in the code, and we read from it. That is, the letter height that can be limited, or it would be limited to a maximum of 10 inches, except if it can be found that a larger letter height is consistent with the building size, architecture, or setback from the public right-of-way as determined by the Design Review Committee. And I think given, as we've talked about, the setback, the non-illumination, the closeness to the sign that's been in place and was approved some time ago, that I think, you know, we can exercise our discretion and find that an inch or an inch and a half doesn't make any difference, and the proposal should be approved as presented.
There's one more clarification, though. There is no monument sign, correct, on the property?
Yes, that's one that you approved.
Yeah, the one at the street, that's out by the
I
street.
missed that meeting.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Let me pull it up.
And it replaced the existing
Yes.
sign.
There is
It's in
one.
the brick monument at the
Yeah.
corner. Is that what it
Not in the
is?
corner, there, when you go, the driveway entrance, there's like a landscaped area, and they have a ground sign there.
And it's on the 246 side?
Yes.
Yeah, so it is somewhat problematic. You wouldn't necessarily know what that building would be unless it had the sign on the building because of the way that angles down that hill.
And
Yeah,
so
the monument
this
sign
is-
isn't.
The monument
Yeah.
sign is right here where my arrow is.
Yeah, no, so you miss it
then-
because of the trees, actually. When they're in foliage, it's very
That's a
hard to
good point.
see that monument sign.
Yeah,
And
there's,
then this
there's,
is what you.
Yeah,
So you can see the difference between
And-
the two.
yeah.
yeah.
I think it's not a matter of scale of the letters and the sign, but
Right.
rather the difference in the logo. The US Bank is, much more dominant somehow in its appearance.
Brighter, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a motion, or is there any discussion with anybody here? No? Any motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the sign with the proposed changes.
Okay. Been moved, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye,
I
401. Thank you.
My hesitation only was in the fact that I was concerned just a little bit about the scale of it, but we'll find out. I think it will be because of the placement of it,
I think
that's
it's going to
why.
be equally weighted in terms of how you view it. It's not going to necessarily feel that different.
And that's why I got my vote,
Yeah.
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 And I think we have clearly, explicitly, with the code, the discretion to do that in those circumstances. Yeah, go ahead. Okay, the next item on the agenda relates
It's also not in the
Okay,
village
and I went and
area.
looked.
relates to the Draftsman
Yeah.
Yale Works at 1631
Okay.
Mission Drive. Yeah,
Thank you.
This is what was approved,
Okay.
what's up there. This is,
Oh, this is the new color?
That they're asking, yeah, and then they have the trim.
Oh, okay.
but I'm just passing these, right?
yeah, they've got,
This
they just
is-
need the
This
light
is
colored
what's in the
one.
proposal, and then these are the new?
They just need the trim one.
Sophia, would you give us an overview of this application, please?
Yes, so this is a sign plan and a change to the approved colors for 1631 Mission Drive, which is that former office building that's between Coast Range and Park Place. It's going to be taken, or it's going to be occupied by Draftsman Ale Works. So I'll just go down the staff report since there's a bunch of stuff. So like I mentioned, they're asking for a change to the colors that were approved at your meeting on August 19th, 2021. They would like to, you had approved the tried and true blue, which you have a version of up there, and simply white for the trim of the building. And the applicant is proposing in the midnight hour for the
yeah.
exterior walls and Tyler gray from the trim.
Sorry, we can share, yeah.
Sign one, they're proposing 6 9-foot aluminum market umbrellas in burnt orange to be placed on their front patio area. So if you walked by the current building, they're currently working on putting a really extensive, a really extensive patio on the front of the property. So they're wanting to have umbrellas out front for the summer. And umbrellas are permitted for restaurants or food and beverage businesses who, in the TRC. They're not proposing any lettering on the umbrellas, so they're going to remain burnt orange without any lettering. The second sign, the applicant is proposing a mural for the west wall that faces the parking lot and Park Place. The design is a minimalist floral design that has lettering that says "Welcome to Solvang" and Draftsman Ale Works, and they're proposing to just to use the colors of the building. So if you look at, page. I don't have numbering on it, but if you look at this page.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's in black and white. But basically, the white will be the trim color, which is the Tyler gray, and then the darker color will be the in the midnight hour.
Can we see that Tyler Gray again? Sorry.
Sure.
And in the code, I looked in both the code and the design guidelines. So in the code, murals are permitted as long as they're reviewed and approved by the design review committee. And then in the design guidelines, the only thing I could really find was about visual art in exterior public and semi-public places. And again, it states that they have to be approved by the bar and adhering with the traditional theme of the village. Sorry, my stuff is all over the place. Okay. And then sign 3, they're proposing a ground sign on the property. That's this.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to read the definition because it's quite lengthy, but what they're proposing is a double-sided and dimensional sign. They spent a lot of time going throughout Solvang to get inspiration from signs, and so they really like the Good Seed sign. So it's very much based off of that. It'll be part of a planter landscape area that will be in front of the patio. The building has less than 50 feet of dominant frontage, which the code states as needing for ground signs. And so therefore a modification is being requested. And it's invoking a similar provision of the code as the last sign, which is basically where the DRC can approve signs or modifications if they find that the proposed sign height or number is architecturally harmonious in relation to the size and location of the business, shopping center, or complex. And then it lists totals. So you can't be more than 13 feet high or 50 square feet in height. They're not requesting a lot of signs, so they're within those requirements. So as I mentioned, the thing with this is the modification because they have slightly less than 50 feet of dominant frontage. And then the sign 4 is a wall sign that they are wanting to place on one of the walls that face south. So I think this document, the site plan is very important to show not only where the wall sign will go, but the deck and the landscaped area and where the pole sign will go, or excuse me, ground sign will go. And then this sign is within the requirements of the code. I also felt it was important to indicate that the sign, that wall is set back about 35 feet from the public right-of-way. And there is, I think they put it in the site plan, but there's also an existing bench and like a bus stop that stops right in front of their building as well. And that's it. The applicant, Tammy, is here with any, she can answer any questions.
Okay?
You have recommendations on any of the items.
Someone from, what's that?
Sorry, Lori's asking me. My recommendations are approval.
Okay. Someone from the, please step forward if you like. Give you an opportunity to say your piece. And welcome to the Design Review Committee. You still have some work to do over there. I was over there.
Oh, I've been painting. I got a little visit from Esther today. I had paint head to toe. I changed for you.
Wouldn't recognize you.
First, thank you. Welcome to Solvang. I am Danish. I lived in Scandinavia, and all my friends are like, there's a whole town that's Danish? So, but we are very excited to be here. If you have any questions, I'm happy to try to answer any of them.
Okay.
I have a question. So, just for the sake of conversation, I understand why you want a pole sign out front because so it can be seen easier. If you weren't able to put up a pole sign, the alternative would be a wall sign. I mean, I know you're putting a wall sign towards the back, but let's just take that out of the equation for a minute. For frontage, is there an option for a wall sign really? Because I know you have that front deck that comes out, right? And so maybe I'm asking Sophia even more so, I don't know. I'm trying to understand I'm trying to make clear the need for the pole sign. That's what I'm getting at.
I
In
can-
lieu of a wall sign, I guess. Yeah.
So right now, there was a bay window there, and now it's doors that
Sure.
open completely. So there's no real place to put one.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not even sure where it would go. And because the actual door and where it is, I mean, we've sort of picked the one place that actually has space to put a sign.
Sure, sure.
And that's pretty much why. And it's a very busy space right there with the bus stop.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been stuck behind that bus a few times.
Sure.
Well, and the reason I stopped in was that I could tell somebody was working there, and I couldn't see through the screen to really get an idea of
Right.
what we were talking about. I would like to suggest that as we vote on these, that we pull it out, all the separate items for separate votes.
Okay,
And potential conversation too, if that would be agreeable.
yeah.
Laser, can you bring up my screen, please?
Yeah, there we go.
So I guess that would be starting with colors.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did go by and look, you've got the one wall painted the color that we'd approved, which looks strikingly purple in the daylight, which I believe you said prompted
Yeah,
the revisiting of the color.
I was afraid of a purple grape building. Yeah, just go down to the grape over there.
Yeah, it did look purple, so,
But that was going to be my question, whether that was the color, the old color or the new proposed color, so.
and this seems to be a definite improvement. Again, this blue did not appear purple in this environment particularly, that put it on a vertical wall and it all changes. That's the challenge of picking colors. That's why we have our handy dandy lights here that mimic the different, daylight and bright foggy day or whatever. The color change seems like a good move.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah, I saw the sampling. I was over there earlier today, too.
Yeah.
And, and you have the.
Swatches.
In that one
Multiple,
picture
yeah.
with the big sign, you could see your test area there for the colors.
Yeah.
I don't have any comments on the color.
Yeah, I agree that the color change is nice. I like the combination.
Okay?
Yep.
Shall we, do you want to go one by, for each of the items?
Yeah, I
Have a
think we
vote on
should.
each one?
Yeah, so I move that we approve the color change as presented.
Should we take public comment or on
Yeah.
that, or?
Yeah.
Do we do that after
we
the
do that
motion or
Yeah, we'll get a
before?
second, and then we'll
Okay.
open it
Yeah.
up.
I did want to see that people, I don't know if they can see, but that, that this color is much bluer. And so in the packet, if you're
Bluer
looking
than
at
the
it
center.
online,
Yeah.
it does not look blue. It looks black.
Right.
And I actually had a heart attack because I was like, oh my God,
Yeah, here we go again.
because here we go. You're right. So I just wanted to point that out to people listening, if you bother watching this. It's not gray.
It's
blue.
not what it looks like on the
Yeah,
paper,
it's-
nor is the trim at
Correct.
all
Right.
like it looks like on
Right.
paper, so.
Yeah.
It's a lot warmer.
Yeah.
Than what it appears like.
So, oh, I can hold them up, but you need, it's the daylight light that
Yeah.
actually works really well. I don't know, does that translate?
It's the darkest tone there.
No, see,
Yeah, you
kind
can-
of,
Not
no.
really.
Yeah, but because also the
Reflects,
ink there is
yeah.
kind of there.
It's the,
There, you can kind of see now. And I'm wearing a lot of blue, so that helps too. But,
But it still looks kind of
compared to
black
what's in
there.
the,
there.
this is
wait,
what's in.
There, yeah. Yeah.
You know,
And then
it
put the
is-
trim.
I just want to make that point because people think we're crazy if they look at the print and then they'll be like.
Do you have the
"Whatever."
trim color too, Jennifer?
Yeah,
to
yeah.
Put beside it? I
Yeah.
think that's a,
Yeah.
like
Oh.
maybe put it beside the
Sure.
there.
I don't mind playing Vanna. That's fine. I always
Yeah.
wanted to that role. Okay.
Yeah, the gray is almost more of a
A
a
beige.
straw beige.
Yeah,
or
it's
something,
really,
yeah.
but it
Yeah, it
doesn't,
is.
it reads with a lot of, it actually reads more like a putty in a
Yeah,
way.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's a good way to put it.
And we're tasked with looking at it in
Yeah.
context between, the Park Place and the Coast Range buildings, and I think it'll be
Yeah.
complementary, a color palette.
But different, which
Yes.
is nice.
Yes, which is important.
Yeah. So,
Okay, so
that's
we
all I
have-
wanted to say.
Any other discussion regarding that? This is of the
Think-
colors, we have a motion and a second.
Do we have a
I'm
second?
sorry, could
We-
we say who, first and second?
Okay,
Oh.
well, I think I'll be very clear on this too. So, I move that we accept the colors as presented. Benjamin Moore, 1666, which is
In the midnight hour.
in the midnight hour, thank you. And the Tyler Gray, CW-50.
I'll second.
Okay. Is there any other comments from anyone in the, okay? Seeing none, we'll proceed with the vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 401.
Great.
Okay, now next one is sign one.
Which is umbrellas.
Actually, it was the proposed
Oh.
umbrellas.
Yeah.
It's the umbrellas, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
yes. The umbrellas, 6 foot, or 9 foot,
6 9-footers.
6 9-footers.
In burnt orange.
Burnt
I was
orange.
a little hesitant when I initially saw burnt orange, but I went and looked at the building in context, and it's got a lot of terracotta tile in the surrounding area. And I am guessing, again, we have just our printout, your logo, the ale, the L and Ale Works, is that also that kind of burnt orange color?
It's PMS 159.
Okay, I don't know what that is,
Because
because we just have this, so.
It looks to the eye with black or gray. It's actually a red,
Mm-hmm.
but if it's near an orange, it will look kind of orange.
Okay.
Well, certainly orange is complementary to blue, which,
Yeah.
you know, is, I think, a nice combination, so.
Okay?
Yeah.
Are the umbrellas going in the, where it says the decomposed granite location, or where did I miss? Is it on the deck?
The deck, there's basically 2 levels of pavers, and they're like a gray paver. The upper, then there's some grassy landscape plants, and then there's more pavers down below, and then there's the barrier between us and the bus stop. And so,
I think I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think our little landscape plan is a misnomer, because I asked you about the DG when I was there,
Yeah, and
because this shows a large area of DG, which
That's
I.
what I was asking.
yeah,
Yeah.
it can't be DG.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because of because of handicap.
Okay.
So
And
it'll
s-
be pavers,
Yes.
okay. And then it's going to be tables, chairs, and umbrellas? Okay.
Correct.
And you know what those tables and chairs are going to be yet?
No.
Okay. Okay.
Does that come back to us? The tables and chairs, or is
We
that
have
staff?
not, Commissioner Hester Bates, the furniture has not come back to the Design Review Committee in the past. We did have that discussion in regards to the Mexican restaurant down the street, because that furniture showed up just before the meeting, and so there was the issue about colors on that site. So we would suggest that as you choose your furniture, if you could come back to staff, and we can just look at what you're proposing. If it is a little bit on color edge, we might have you come back to the DRC.
Yeah.
Simple.
Capital Sol was at that edge, I guess.
Yes.
Well, and they'd pulled the trigger before they came here, which is problematic. And I think there's a lot of railings that you have that are black, if I recall. Remind
I don't
me.
know, it's like the wood frame with the wire.
Oh,
That's
that's right.
right.
Yeah.
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 Okay, it's been a while.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
So tonight, the motion is on the umbrellas.
Yes.
For orange.
Do we have that motion?
Motion to accept the umbrellas as presented.
Okay.
Second,
Moved and seconded. Any other comment? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 401. Okay, now, the mural on the west wall, which is sign 2. So then we don't have any, do we have other examples of a mural signage like that?
In town?
Yeah.
Not that I'm aware.
Most of the murals in town are more pastoral, and particularly along Alisal, you'll see that in the Frederico, the first building has some of those that look like windows, and you can see through, and then you go down towards, where-
Rasmussen's.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's more the trend of murals. This is the first one that has more of a graphic look to it, not pastoral scenes. And so it is something that we need some direction on and consideration by the DRC.
Looks like there might be somebody
Can
in
you
Zoom.
put it up on the
there.
screen?
Oh, is there someone in Zoom? I don't think so. I think they put
Okay,
it,
just-
they show a
okay.
hand there.
So if my recollection serves me, we were talking about mural here because we were talking about the wall that was adjoining off the side of the Coast Range building. Because it was
Yes.
a pretty large side of that building exposed to the front patio. So I was a little surprised to see it be on the
It's on, right?
side of the
of the,
Building.
the
Parking lot,
building,
the parking
correct.
lot there, yeah.
Yeah, so I was a little surprised by that. And I think actually that it could present one of these selfie wall problems. I mean, who knows? I don't know. I just wonder if it's the best place for that. It didn't feel like it needed it to me there. It felt like it was more of an opportunity on the big white wall that's adjacent. But I know that you don't control that building, so I get that part of it. But to me, to kind of cram it on the side of the little building, I don't know that it's that effective.
I think it's a pretty strong visual on that building, and there will be cars parked there a lot as well. And to step back to the other building wall that's on the Coast Range business there, I think it's actually going to be significantly less big wall, blank wall aesthetic once you put your deck and the umbrellas. It's going to change the whole look. I would recommend painting that wall as opposed to a mural of this nature. I think
Would you
it's,
have another sign of some sort that was
I think there's the potential for that. I don't think that it necessarily needs it there. If there's this other sign, which we have yet to vote on, it's a little bit out of character for the old world style that we see around. We'd be setting it, there'd be a new precedent set for style. And it's not that I dislike the style, and I certainly like contemporary design. The placement of it perhaps it could be, I think that there's better places for that, and this is not the place. Do any of my colleagues have any thoughts now that I
Well,
expressed a
struck
pretty
me the
strong
same way. I mean,
opinion?
I think it runs counter to what we're trying to do here. I think it's visually great. I like that Solvang is huge on the, it's bigger than the restaurant name there. It looks like it's a sign put up by Solvang.
I want, well, I actually, that was part of the intent, is to, Solvang over the pandemic has done very well at marketing itself. LA, they've, I heard you say in the beginning, it's grown. And one really key way of marketing that is, oh, let me take a selfie, click, and that was part of the intent of like, where is Solvang now? And that is a key piece of marketing.
Yeah.
It might be easier to envision with a moke parked in front of it.
A what?
A moke.
Oh,
So,
I mean, because it's true, the selfie thing. I mean, you said almost like a concern, which yes. And then as a business owner, I'm like, well, I want people taking selfies all over my building with my sign, anywhere they can. And frankly, when I go visit places and I see where they've put like wings where you can stand, in between the wings, or some place where you can fit yourself into a cool, piece of art, then it is a fun thing to do for sure. My thinking on it is, this is what we're faced with all the time. My personal, opinion, I think it's lovely. I would love to see that if I went somewhere. But how does it fit in with the design element? That's probably our most difficult task is to make decisions based on what Solvang was built on, and it's been a struggle, I think, to kind of hold back from that more modern Danish design, which I love. I mean, I want to lean into that,
Yeah.
but then I have to say, whoa, this is kind of where that's not exactly what Solvang was built on, and where do you kind of draw the line between making some changes subtly, to kind of update things and make things feel fresh without losing the style or the, appeal that is Solvang, because there is a point where then it just becomes, modern buildings in a town that used to be not modern. So I'm not necessarily saying yes or no. I'd be interested to hear what other people have to say, or I guess what Jen has to say.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't have an issue with its design vernacular. Truthfully, I still am bent out of shape about where it is.
Precisely.
I don't think it's a matter of the design motif. It's not. That's not what bothers me. It bothers me that it's adjacent to parking spaces, and it's not. It sort of feels like an afterthought, and it's on a small scale building, and it doesn't feel like it's the right place for it. It just doesn't. It's a great idea in the wrong. In my mind, in the wrong location. And I agree. I think I don't think it's needed there. And it's sweet, but it's not, it feels like a strange, it's a strange solution. It's not in my mind, it's not super well thought out. It's convenient, I'll give you that, but I don't think it's well thought out in terms of how it will actually play out when you've got cars parked there. And I don't know. It's not enough of a showcase. Like, if you're going to do that, make it a showcase location where you can walk up and you don't have a Honda Civic parked in front of it. Truthfully.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I agree more with the idea of location versus the design of it. I'm fine with the flowers. you know, that doesn't scream anti-old world to me.
Yeah,
It is
Even-
very, it's unusual. That's why I asked if there's anything like that, because I just don't know it. And again, one of the reasons that people come from LA and San Francisco or whatever else, and our numbers have held up, as you pointed out, through COVID, a lot of times people are drawn here in a way because it's sort of a make-believe Danish village. And it's supposed to be Danish village of, you know, traditional, you know, not modern Danish, you know,
Well, and Pat, I actually,
teak
I,
wood, but it's, you know, it is, and that's what I think keeps people coming back. And I think, you know, I understand you want to have it be distinctive, but I think, you know, I'm bothered that fits on that site.
to me, the aesthetic is interesting. It could, if you want to translate it into some kind of old world vernacular, it would be in the form of, this looks a bit like the paper cutting tradition because of the simplicity to it. So to me, it is, my comments are not relevant to the design, but rather, again, I really question the location and because of the parking lot location. And certainly it's not going to be a good selfie location because you don't want people climbing over wheel stops and such and backing up, you know, standing there if the parking space is empty. So,
Oh, go ahead.
and that kind of integration, this is something we're going to be talking about again as we go into the design standards, and you keep hearing us talk about this because we're doing a general plan update. You know, there are ways of integrating the old world design with modern components and making it all fluid and work well. Probably not in this project, in this location.
My question then on what the two of you are saying, because I understand that, then I would ask, taking away the design, or whether it's old world or not old world, if a business wants to say, well, I want to put a mural up anyway, even if no one takes selfies of it. Like, in other words, are we saying we don't like the location because it's not showcased enough, but does that mean don't do it and don't try it? You know what I mean? In other words, does it?
Not
Does
from
it
my
hurt?
standpoint. I think it's relevant as to the where and the scale.
Uh-huh.
I think it's always about that.
Yeah.
I mean, right? Like, that's how you solve for the best design in the world. It's by location
Yeah.
and by size and by scale and what's it adjacent to and what does it feel like and like that's how you solve it. And so it is a case by case basis. So I can think of other locations where we've talked about there is a need for something on that great white wall, right? This just isn't one of those places.
Yeah.
And so, right? It
Yeah, yeah,
just-
no, I
in
see
my
what
mind,
you're
it's
saying.
just not that big of a, and I do think that if you're saying, do you want to paint the side of your building with pretty flowers? I don't know, maybe I have a different answer too. I mean, this says something and it says also the name of the city and it says the name of the establishment, which then puts it into a different discussion.
Yep.
It's not a decorative motif just for the sake of being a decorative motif.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's why I asked. Well, I think that's an important part of the conversation, you know?
So the comment would be if the mural portion of it was done, but the Welcome to Solvang draftsman sign was put on that wall. Is that a sign that could be approved? As it's illustrated here.
Probably, I'd rather see an actual sign with.
Yeah, I think we'd have to see
With
a revised application.
three-dimensional.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or vice versa, just pure curiosity. If it didn't say anything, didn't have any words.
I think my comments would still stand. It wasn't the words that I drove those comments. It just came down to location and placement.
So I think we need a motion and
Yeah.
direction on this particular item.
You want a motion asking that be resubmitted at a later time, reviewed, or do you want?
Well, I think
just
with
Well,
this-
say-
how do you feel about so I guess, what is the ultimate goal for that wall? That's what I'd like to understand. What is the ultimate goal for that wall?
I wanted to give it some personality.
But I mean, is it personality or is it signage? Or,
Signage wasn't actually first, it wasn't number one on my list. I actually wanted to nod to Solvang, nod to the Danish heritage, and just have a wall that was interesting.
okay.
I mean, it's
I do agree, it's a stark, well, stark is maybe not a good word for it because it's painted dark right now, but I mean, it is one wide area of space. There isn't really, it's kind of hard to tell, and when I went over there, I didn't pay attention to this now, I wish I had. The space behind the parking bumpers, is that walkway there, or is that?
right
kind of
behind that wall, like right behind
Right in front of the
building.
wall? Is there like a walkway there?
There's a little walkway. We're gonna put it like a small bit of greenery there.
Okay,
and-
that was going to be my
Yeah.
question, is could that wall be, become more interesting using some kind of landscaping element, or, planting or
Really
something?
close to the parking lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can walk, you can walk between the barrier and
Okay.
the building.
Yeah,
I see.
I mean, it's not like a triple wide space.
sure, sure.
Yeah.
And it's not a really large wall either.
No.
It's certainly not by
Right.
contrast with
That's
the surrounding buildings.
Yeah, we get swallowed up a little bit between
Yeah.
the Park Place and then, like, just
Yeah.
both
Yeah.
of those two
Yeah.
things, so.
Well, I have to
Yeah.
say, when I went by there and looked at it, because when I first saw this, again, personal opinion, it's pleasing to look at, so I didn't have my mind made up or anything like that, but I realized it was farther kind of back from the road than I really expected, and that actually played out better for me, because it felt like if it had been really close, that might have just been like, whoa, like too much from right at Mission. So you're right, it's less assuming than I thought it was, or even than it shows in this picture, because this picture is just zooming in on that, and it looks like one big wall.
Right.
And I'm not even sure, I see your building and your beautifully redone front area as being a really strong visual when you get the pop of color with the umbrellas and the dark building. I hope you're pleasantly surprised at how the eye goes to that, because you're between those two
White.
kind of white buildings, and you're gonna be this pop of color. So my hope for you is that what I see is what happens, which is all of a sudden you've got something that really stands out there in an elegant way
Yeah. It
between
doesn't
those
face the
two
street,
roads.
though, I mean, or the sidewalk.
Yeah,
It's, yeah, it's on the
but,
side.
but
yeah.
because you've got that big front deck with the layers, I think it'll look, you've got a nice plan put forward here.
Yeah, I just don't see a need for it.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a large enough wall area to require it.
In a way, that's part of the argument for it to me, because it isn't that huge. And, I'm surprised you can't think of murals, like maybe there's down at Jim's gas station.
No, Rasmussen's very notably.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
what Rasmussen's,
yeah,
Yeah,
that's Rasmussen's.
there's a
has
number on
that.
Ellisall.
Yeah,
Yeah, but we do have them here, but I think it is, so it's okay. I mean, we contemplated it, and we have them, so,
well, I'd like to make a motion so we
Yeah.
can move forward with this, and it's probably not the motion that you were hoping for, but my motion is that we deny the sign two for the mural on the building, and advise that you paint it to match the rest of the building.
I'll second that.
any other comments?
I'm just sad.
Yeah, it's hard for us we never hardly ever make
Deny.
motions of this, yeah, to deny something.
I know I'm pushing,
Yeah.
but isn't that what everybody does on this side?
Yes.
Well, and, there'll be opportunities to swing it at the ball again, too.
I think, again,
We
I
need a
think
vote.
the intent is correct. I think
haven't voted.
placement is wrong. That's all. I really do.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's not that it's bad. I just don't like the placement of it.
We need a vote.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
need a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say no.
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 Oh, we're at a tie. So now, we've never had that happen.
I think one other time,
No.
and I think it was us causing the problem, me and Patrick.
Oh, we're saying,
You-
we're
I-
talking about, yeah.
My thinking on it is I'm not sold one way or the other, I guess that's, I'm not saying, when I see it, I'm like, oh, this is exactly what needs to go there. I agree with kind of everything
Yeah.
everybody's saying, including you. So I'm hesitant to just outright deny it, and/or approve it. Which doesn't mean I want all of us to be here all night debating it.
Well, at this point, when there's a tie, it doesn't pass?
No, but
No,
my,
Requires 3 votes to pass.
yeah,
Yeah.
It doesn't pass.
yeah, it doesn't
Right.
pass.
But the notion is, that doesn't mean it's dead.
Well,
I think what it is,
Yeah.
I have-
Yeah, please go
I have
ahead.
an idea.
Yeah.
Do we want to try a subcommittee and have a part of it painted? That's the only thing I could potentially think of.
I think it needs to come back. if There's something
and there's still
different.
work to be done. This isn't going to be open for New Year's Eve, I know. Thank you. But there is a lot of work to be done, and I think, you heard our comments, the staff have. We like so much of what you've done here, and we like a lot of elements of it. This is kind of a big deal, and I think that we urge you to reconsider the concept of it and look at ways in which it can be presented to the Design Review Committee next year.
And it may help to have a full board also.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yes.
That's true.
To have five,
That's right.
5 people
Yeah.
present, which
But
may be 5
good luck.
different
It's-
people.
It's a,
well, at least it wouldn't tie then.
Yeah, that's true.
but I'm glad I went over there and looked at it, this was earlier this morning, but it was, you've got a great start. It's a great property, neat little property, and great location.
Yeah, they were going to tear it down. And when I
I
saw
know.
it, I said,
No,
you
I know.
can't tear it
Yeah.
down.
It's great. Congratulations on getting that and
You're
then
doing the right thing
seeing-
by
Yeah.
holding on to
seeing
it.
what's possible there. I predict it'll be a very popular place.
So we still have 2 more signs to
Yep.
go.
Yeah,
I understand.
no, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So,
So once again, a tie vote just means it falls either way.
Right.
Yeah,
It doesn't
it just didn't,
Yeah.
didn't advance, okay?
okay,
Yeah.
got it.
So
So
sign
now we're on sign number
3,
3,
pole sign,
the poles.
ground sign or whatever.
Ground sign.
Yeah, and that's noted.
Sophia, could you go back and give us just a little more clarity as to the placement of the ground sign as proposed?
Yes, let me pull it up on my screen.
Okay, so that one's the best option to, okay.
And I'll also show Google Earth too. But this, Laser, can you, thank you. This red square is where they're proposing to put the sign.
Okay.
I see.
Would that lead the sign to hang over the sidewalk, or it would go back the other way? It would be facing the building? Okay.
Correct.
I know that probably seems obvious, but I just wanted to make sure I was understanding it right.
And just in relative to the wall sign, so on this layout, the wall sign is directly behind it on the building structure where the former window was, right? On the pop
There's still,
out.
the window's still there.
It's gonna remain?
Yeah,
It's right
the window's
here.
still there.
This is the
So
window.
this-
Yeah.
Okay, so the.
That's the wall sign.
The wall sign is adjacent to it. Okay. Got it.
So you can see that it's set back
Yeah.
quite a distance, and it's actually blocked by 2 other buildings as you're coming down
Yeah,
the
you
street.
can't see it, right.
Yeah, so I think this is a good compromise to having a partial, a wall sign and also the ground sign.
Right.
Yeah, personally, for those reasons, I think the post and the ground sign is reasonable. We've approved other things down the street that you could see a lot easier than what they're requesting. So I'm I'm fine with the ground sign
I
addition.
agree.
I think
Okay.
with the big setback there that you have between the
Yeah.
street and the building, that it could be very attractive there as well.
And the wall sign in sometimes will be blocked by the umbrellas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'd like to move that sign number 3, which is termed a ground sign as presented, is approved.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any comment? My only comment is one I talked about earlier, and that's the font, the lettering.
I asked the exact same question. Like, okay, what exactly does that mean?
Well, I mean, because we talked about this old, you were here. when
Yeah,
we talked
yeah, I
about
was
the
here.
Old, what, old
Old
world
world font.
lettering. And, yeah, where's the piece, where's
Right
the?
here.
Yeah. This is, would you hand that to her? I'm just saying, you know, we have that in there and it's not in there at all. This is clearly sans serif. There's no
Yeah.
serifs. It's pretty straight, you know, and I like that in a lot of places. Again, here, the preference, and it's been in design standards we've had here for 40 years, or 35 years, you know, has this preference for old world lettering, but again, I don't think it's clear what that means. Did you see that? Do you have the?
Yeah.
I do
Okay.
now.
So that's, it's not that big a deal, really, but it just tries to be more consistent with the design, you know, the retailers across the city are subject to it. Now, that doesn't mean that they comply with it because they ask exceptions, and we're told that it's a preference of the city, not a requirement of the city. And I will tell you, I think that the language going forward after the general plan is adopted, it will be more directive. And, you know, so that's the one qualification I would be happier about it. I'll vote for it, but I will be happier voting for it if it had the old world lettering of, you know, some sort or another.
I think one of the things that did give me pause was the metal letters on it. So really, it is dimensional, but is not appearance of the carved wood.
I copied the good seat sign, basically.
It seems that that's it's been popular more recently in our applications with the metal.
I don't think it'll look like metal. Like, you will if you touch it. But I don't think it
It'll look more like a sculpted sign.
Well, usually with a sculpted sign, you'll have like
Yeah,
the actual
kind of, right. And they do that in.
texture, I
Yeah.
guess is what I'm looking for.
Yeah, there's a,
That's part of that dimensionality.
yeah.
For me, in order of importance, just personally, is that it's got some dimension, right? That the letters stand out from the
Right, I agree.
background. Second to that would then be the carving, and then, you know, I mean, both I think are important, but I think that the letters stand out, I'm okay with them being metal letters as long as they look, I think with they're painted, as you said, you probably won't even really notice that they're metal necessarily.
Okay. So we have a motion and a
So,
second?
well, we've got.
Go ahead.
we've
got a motion,
We've
but no
got a
second.
down lighting on this sign. Where is the lighting mounted?
Top, down.
At the top of the Draftsman sign?
Yeah, yes.
And
Is-
it's like, what's the detail around that light? Is it a box? Is it lit then? Like, where's,
Oh,
so you can't
Whatever.
tell from this drawing what that.
LED
how it
floods,
looks.
it
It's,
says.
I wrote it in there. I can go get it.
No, it says it,
Yeah.
but is there a housing that we're not seeing on this?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I don't have the answer to that off the top. I'm basically looking at what else is out there and what people are doing and copying it.
Well, so
So-
all I'm trying to point out
Yeah.
is there's likely to be a housing, right?
Yeah.
You want to make sure it's shaded or so that
Yeah,
it's
that
night
I know.
sky compliant and
Yeah.
all of that. And that it's, but there is an electrical detail here so that you can read it at night.
Right.
And I just want to make sure you guys realized it
good
said
catch.
that.
Yeah,
you know.
that's
So
right.
like,
Good
is
one.
it arcing lights or is it a strip that, because I've just done some new signs and we just did an LED strip where it just illuminates the sign. It works really quite
Yeah, it looks
amazingly well.
Great.
Whatever it is, I want it to be small.
Yeah, well, and this disappears from
small.
view. It totally disappears. So I guess that I would like to revisit my motion. I don't believe that it had a second.
No second yet.
That we approve the application as presented with the caveat that the lighting, which is not detailed here, be dark sky compliant.
Sure.
I'll second that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Any other comments regarding it? Regarding this item? It's been moved and seconded. No comments in Zoom land. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye,
Aye.
401. Great,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck with this.
Some lively debate.
adventure. Okay, we have one more applicant to hear, and they are here, and they've been here since the beginning of the meeting. So we'd like to take them up, and then we'll probably have a break before we get into the general plan issue. So, Sophia, do you want to give us an overview of the Mohole Cottage?
Yes.
At 1539 Mission Drive.
Yes, they're proposing a variety of items, including an awning, 2 wall signs, a proposed ground sign, painting the door, and then proposed landscaping around their area out front. So we'll talk through that in a second. So the first sign is the new awning. They have installed a awning that is copper, so it's metal. It has the same pitch and dimensions as the one that was approved. And as I mentioned, it's been installed already. So it's existing on the facade of the building. It sounds like, according to the applicant, the owner would like to replace all of the awnings with the metal awning. What they're proposing is a straight black valance going on the copper awning that says Mulehole Cottage in white lettering that is Madrid light, which seems in line with the information that Pat gave us about old world style lettering. And the proposed lettering will be 5 inches tall, which is what I believe is outlined in the code regarding the max height. They are requesting a modification for the depth of the valance, due in part to they measured the valances for their neighbors, and it looks like one is 9.5 inches and the other is 10 inches, so they're asking for a slightly larger valance. In the code, it's 8.5 inches that's allowed, and they're requesting 9. Signs 2 and 3 are 2 signs that were at the Mulehole location on First.
1656.
Thank you. Those were approved by the Board of Architectural Review in 1998. It was really fun to go into the files and find that. They actually recently refinished the signs with the same colors that were approved, and they're proposing to put them on either side of the entrance to the store. I've explained to the applicant that in the code, it says if the signs are changing, you have to get approval again, which is why these signs are coming back to you. For sign 4, they're requesting to do a sign, which I defined it as a ground sign, similar to what Aerosmith has done in their planters. What I included in the staff report is when I found the Aerosmith's approval, that was done during a time when we didn't have staff and we didn't have a DRC or Board of Architectural Review. And the applicant is requesting a modification to allow for a second ground sign due to the presence of the Aerosmith sign and other signs that they've seen around town. And as we've mentioned in previous staff reports tonight, you all can make the modification to allow for a different number. The way the code is written is it's allowed for businesses with dominant frontage of 50 feet or more only, and the frontage for this building, I looked at the assessor's parcel map, is like 43 maybe in feet, excuse me. The code also outlines that one low freestanding sign to identify a shopping center or office building complex is allowed, and freestanding signs for individual businesses within a complex are not considered appropriate and will not be permitted. So there's conflict. You all can allow a modification.
Yeah.
The applicant would use another sign that was previously approved in 1998. They're proposing to put the sign on a 4-foot tall post, and the sign bracket will be ornate, similar to what is outlined in the design guidelines. And the size is 3.75 square feet. And they're going to put it they'd like to put it in a planter that will separate the Mulehole Cottage from Paula's Pancake House. So that's sign 4. They're also, they painted the door. So there is a picture of what the door used to look like. And I'm sorry, I did not put page numbers on here. That will not happen again. But this is what the door used to look like. They've painted it white to match the mullions in the window. And then lastly, they're proposing to do quite extensive landscaping and planters in the front area. Y'all may know that this site is often overrun with people that are waiting to eat at Paula's Pancake House. So each of the businesses there have come up with their own kind of barricades to distinguish themselves from that and to allow for traffic into their own stores. So they're requesting approval to enclose their front patio area with planters. They're black planters. There's photos of them. They're going to use a combination of circular and rectangular pots. The round pots measuring 19.75 inches by 18.5 inches, and the rectangular planters measuring 16.25 inches by 38 inches. So they're quite large pots. They will plant, and there's also like a brick planter between Mulehole Cottage and Paula's Pancake House that belongs to the property that we're talking about. So they're also proposing to tear out everything that's existing in there and putting in plants similar to what Aerosmith has, which are the boxwood bushes. And then in the planters, they'll be planting clarity blue, Dahlia, and pansies. So different flowering plants. And I assume you all will want to go through one item at a time, as you've done in the past, and the applicants are here for any questions.
Okay. Thank you. Welcome. Do you have anything you'd like to add for us now? Mr. Munnicky, is it?
Yes, I have a couple things. I actually brought a copy of the sign that we want to put out on the, Lorraine, who has the sign company in the area. She did this. And she actually is the sign we had on the side of the whole front of Grace. And she redid it and repainted it. I think she did an excellent job.
Can
Yeah,
you
I'll
go
say.
to the mic?
Oh,
Oh,
the
I'm
mic.
sorry. And so this is what we hope will get approval today, so we can put this out there. And part of the reason, I think, is we're set back a long ways in our store, and Paula's has a large sign, which we respect. They've been there a long time. And, but it's very easy if I'm driving by in my car and there's no way I can look over to see Cottage is, where the mobile cottage is located. And because otherwise I'll get in an accident, so it's set back quite a ways, and that's just the reality of the property. And I think this particular unit here would add a lot to the continuation of our property, which now with the door painted white, and it looks, and the front of our store looks spectacular. We have so many people coming by there and just looking and looking and looking. And we have obviously association with another store down the road, which, you know, as most of you know, has been in town for 50 years. My wife and I have owned it about half of that time. And so it's very, very important because I think, as I mentioned earlier, we are not planning on closing the other one, but it's in our brain as a possible thought. So we want people to know about this location. And I think with this being pushed back so far, or without this, I think it's people just drive by, won't even see it. And we are putting in some, you know, the new shopping area, the Black Park.
Yeah.
You see all those units they have inside of there, the planters they have them tied to each other and all sorts of things inside that shopping area. Not our area, but you know where the park, what is that called? Place Park?
Park Place.
Park Place. And those are the type of units we are putting in our area. We think it's going to look spectacular. And we think it's going to curb some of the traffic problems in that area. And it's going to keep open the entrance from the people standing in line into our area. I think it's 48 inches, but as well as keeping us wide open with our dear friend at the photo place. So those are just a few of my thoughts.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, do you want to do it piece at a time?
Yeah,
Okay, let's start then with sign 1.
the awning.
Is that, yeah, the awning. Copper,
I
yeah,
had a
please.
question on the awning. I believe there was a comment that, Sophia, that you made regarding the property owner wanting to make all the awnings that copper. Did I understand that
You did.
correctly?
Yes.
And is that something that's coming up or soon, or is that, you know, just the thought as one wears out, it'll be replaced with the copper, or?
I think our understanding is that when the tenants leave, they were planning on changing them, but I think the property manager had reached out to me at one point to ask about the approval, so I can follow up with her depending on what y'all decide.
Just curious on that.
Is on the lettering or the valance, I guess, that hangs down. So in looking at the images, and I did drive by and look today, that valance is just attached basically to the front and just hangs in the front of the awning, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are there other metal awnings in town? I couldn't think off the top of my head.
I couldn't either. I thought
Yeah.
it was interesting.
Yeah,
don't-
agreed.
Yeah.
I walked up and looked at it and went around there.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, that's interesting
Yeah.
material.
I think that there are some copper details on windows throughout the city, but an actual copper awning, we did note that they did not come for approval. It was installed without staff approval or DRC approval. And so the idea that they would continue it along the rest of the frontages and that center would bring some continuity. But again, it's not approved, and we're encouraging them to come back and get that concept approved in total.
Because I think that would it would elevate the appearance of the building.
It's very unique.
Well, and the area, I think it'd be
Yeah.
great, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and, you know, as far as, just saying this to whether the property manager or owner's listening or not, but in my mind, something like that is pretty significant. It's beautiful, but different than the rest of the building. And when they talk about maybe waiting till tenants leave, to me, I think it's an opportunity. You're only, once you put the new ones in, and I realize cost is involved, but let's just take that away for a minute. I mean, to replace just the front valance isn't really that, I had to do that on mine, honestly. It's not that big of a deal, you know? So to me, I'd rather know that there was a plan, you know, in place for them all to be replaced, and not just the plan that when tenants leave, because tenants could stay around for, you know, a long time, really.
Yeah, that's my thought, is that I think that the copper is a really beautiful detail, and, but I don't like the hodgepodge that is being created, and I worry that anytime you incrementalize it by you know, each suite, you create more of that problem, right? And you're gonna start to hear me say that, but multiple materials in the same unit, when the building is all consistent, it just brings out those differences more pronounced. And so, yes, I would say the awning is great, but I agree with Joy and what Esther said, which is if it would be easier to approve if they said they were gonna change them all. And then we would have one consistent look and feel across the front of that property. 'Cause
It does sound like they want to, the goal is to change all of them, so I can talk to them about just coming forward and getting it approved and expediting the process
I
ideally.
think that would be appropriate, especially given that it
Yeah.
was a backwards way of
Correct.
coming in.
So it seems like then it would make more sense for us not to make a decision on this or defer this to an
Well, we can
actual-
approve it if
Yeah, I think
if they revise all of them.
Contingent
Right.
upon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
because ultimately, it's not Harlan, you know, it's not Monikey's
Right.
responsibility.
Right, correct.
However, it's kind of, unfortunately, we've found that if there's not some kind of incentive, it will just kind of roll to the side. And we do appreciate that you're here today to present this, and running through the procedures that the city has established. So that's
Yeah.
a very positive
Yeah.
move. So, is there a way we can do that? Make it a contingent?
I think that's hard to approve it contingent. We're approving for that to be installed. I do think sometimes, you know, once it's installed, it adds momentum and heft to the completion for the building. In the meantime, I'm not terribly bothered that two buildings look differently from the street, look
It's
different
one
from the street.
building though.
No, it's
What?
one, yeah, it's just
One
one
building.
building.
I know it's one building, but
With
we're
separate
talking about
suites.
Aerosmith
Yeah.
and, I mean, two businesses and they share a building, but I don't mind
And
But
the
there's
photo
actually
gallery.
three.
Yeah, there's three.
businesses.
three
Yeah.
buildings, okay?
Well, see, I think
again,
that the diversity comes in the way the awnings are put on the edge of them. It's not that there's, because it'll have a different look. Each of them can
So
have
think
a
of it
different.
this way. You wouldn't normally approve a building with all different awnings.
Or like each unit has its own style of windows, you know, it's all
Right.
has to be cohesive within the building.
I guess,
Yeah.
At the same time, I would, I understand that as new business owners, if that,
Yeah,
at
it's
that
not-
location, that being held up because your building owner needs to move forward on the adjacent units is problematic.
Yeah.
So that's why I said, how do we do this? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
can we do this? Do we want to do this?
I mean, the other thing is it's already there.
It's what?
It's already installed.
Oh, yes,
You know,
exactly.
like,
Except not the awning, but
not the
balance,
balance, but the-
yeah.
the largest part of it is already there.
So I think
So
that-
you can provide direction to staff to talk to the
Yes.
property owner. and we'll do that.
That's a good way to go.
So that's what I was just gonna say. So let's approve this awning as
Presented.
presented
And provide
and,
direction, yeah.
ask, direct staff to return to the property owner to share our concerns.
can I make a caveat?
Mm-hmm.
There also is the exception being asked for the 9-inch letters instead of 8-inch.
Oh,
So
that's
9-inch
right.
balance.
Valance, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
instead of the 8-inch valance. So then that poses the question, because trying to match all the other ones, but if all the other ones are gonna get changed, in my mind, it would be
Should
better
all
for
be
them all to be
compliant.
within the code.
Conforming.
Yeah.
Con-
So my
confirmed.
thinking
Yeah.
would be, if we approve it, that we approve it for, you know, what the code is written for the valance
8-inch.
at 8
Yes.
inches. Yeah.
At
Point,
what?
point taken, and I'd like to amend
Okay.
it to
Okay.
state that in my motion.
And if I could just note the conversation in the previous signs, is that the lettering is not the serif.
Yeah.
Sarah,
Well, I mean, it doesn't have to be those. This is serif.
It does have
Yeah,
a serif.
it does have a
This
serif.
says it has
Yeah,
elements of the old.
the
world
Madrid
font,
light.
so
Yeah.
That's,
Just wanted-
that would be, I'd be happy if more
Yeah.
were that way.
I think the Madrid light conforms well to
Yeah.
that, to the old world
Yeah, I
aesthetic
agree.
there.
so this will be Madrid Light.
Right.
Correct.
Okay,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
If I understood that
By
correctly.
8 inch.
Yeah.
yeah.
that, right,
Okay.
okay. Yeah, I like that, the font style, that's good. Okay, so we have a motion.
Do you want to repeat the motion?
Would you repeat the motion? I think Lori was taking notes.
Sorry.
That you'd move forward with the copper awning and the 8-inch valance with the lettering as illustrated in the package. And second direction would be to work with the property owner.
Sorry, 8.5 then.
8.5 inch, okay? 8.5 inch valance, that'll take care of Mohol's request. Secondarily, you want staff to approach the landowner and the property manager about the rest of the awnings on the rest of the building.
Yeah,
Making them consistent.
Yes,
and I don't know if this is where we approve that lettering on the
this
ballot.
is where you
Yeah.
approve
That's
the
part
letters.
of it.
With the, as presented.
Yeah,
as
as
presented.
presented, exactly.
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you have a question?
Can
Okay.
I say one quick?
Please.
My quick thing is I have a pretty good relationship with the owner, and I would like to be also one who goes to him. I think he listens to me very well, and I think we have a
Great.
good relationship, and I'll do exactly what you're talking about.
Perfect,
Even better.
even
Yep,
better.
that's wonderful.
We like relationship building.
Yeah.
That's good.
Thank you. All right,
I'll second that motion.
Yeah,
the motion and second, so we have regarding the approval of the new awning and balance.
Anybody,
Any other comments? We have
the Zoom person?
somebody's showing there, but
Right.
it's-
Mark, your sign got approved, so you don't have to be here.
Can't hear him.
okay. I think he's heard you now. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 401. Signs 2 and 3. They were those that were approved by the Board of Architectural Review in 1998, recently refinished.
And they are installed on site.
Are installed.
They
Yeah.
are installed and adhere to
Yeah.
adhere to the code. Any discussion? Is there a motion?
They're great
Motion to
signs.
approve as presented and installed.
I'll second that.
Okay, moved and seconded to approve signs 2 and 3 as noted.
My one comment would be that in the future, no signs installed until after the meeting.
I do want to clarify, though, we've been working with Harlan and his wife for several months now. And because they reopened, we gave them approval to put it up, contingent that they were working with us.
Okay.
Okay.
But
Now,
Yes.
known that, okay,
Yep.
I withdraw that comment, knowing that you've been working with staff. That is the
Yeah.
ideal procedure.
Yep.
Okay?
Okay.
Are we
There was
ready
a lot
for,
of creativity with this sign plan, so it's taken a while.
are we ready for a vote then?
Yeah.
All in favor, say aye.
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 401.
Let's go out of order, sorry, Pat.
That's good. Oh, it's good.
2 and 3.
2 and 3.
Sign 4. I'd like to do a sign like Aerosmith's
Ground signs.
ground sign. And it's going to be in that area adjacent, is that right, to the Aerosmiths in the,
This is the one that's going to be
okay?
in the brick planter.
In the planter, in the brick planter there, yeah.
With the metal.
Not in the Aerosmith's planter, but
No.
yeah, but it's in the one between yours and Paula's.
Right.
Right.
I guess my concern about that area is there's a lot going on there. And unlike the previous Draftsman Ale, did I get that
Draftsman
Yeah.
Ale,
right? There's a lot of visual clutter almost over there, and I was kind of dismayed, honestly, to see one of your neighbors having a table covered with goods out in front of the store, and I'm not sure that that's allowed, even if it's a private property. So there's a lot happening there. And this isn't relevant necessarily to the sign, but as we move on in the discussion, I'd like to get staff's input on how much space is supposed to be out there between the end of the planter and that, which kind of does speak a little bit to the placement of this sign. Because I looked at the sidewalk and I watched a person with a wheelchair go past the Paula's area. And I looked at where you have your squares chalked out for the future kind of black. Oh, that's not yours chalked? Okay. Because there's less than 3 feet, it looked like, so I'm happy to see that. So I think the big thing is that my concern was that it not encroach in any way into the pedestrian pathway, which is extraordinarily limited and perhaps encroached upon already.
So,
It's this one right here.
so I have a sort of same comment similarly, that this is one building with 3 suites. It should be addressed, it should have been addressed, Aerosmith's aside, it should have been addressed with like a center sign, like a, almost like what you said about Park Place, with two stanchions and multiple tenants. 3
Yeah.
tenants, equal sign rights at the street, right?
Right,
That's the way it should be.
yeah.
If we were to approve this, then we're gonna end up having a third sign for suite B, or the
Yeah.
middle suite. Because then they're gonna say, well, we want that too. So that's my worry about giving you guys that. I would rather, if you have such a good relationship with the landlord, I would say, landlord, let's come back to the city with a center sign that has the 3 tenants, equal sign rights, and then that's compliant, and everyone has their own identity on a stacked sign, 1 instead of 3. That makes it crazy busy in such a small dimension. I feel like it's just too tight of an area.
I agree, I mean, that's the way it is. I mean, it's, the congestion there is also complicated by Paula's. I mean, it's always crazy and complicated there in a lot of ways, and even involving Olson's and so forth. I also think that some of these issues, particularly regarding the multiple signs like we have down on Park, are addressed in the GPAC document we're going to talk about later. And I think, again, it's going to, I don't want to be presumptuous about what it's going to be, but I think it's going to provide some guidance for this landlord and others as they move forward.
I have a question about the Aerosmith sign. I know it was put up during COVID when there wasn't any staff. I was under the impression it was just put up, but then you kind of said it got approved when there was no staff. So it was approved technically, but not by any,
And in that location,
Yes. When we had the transition between previous staff and my tenure, there were a number of applications that came in, and then the city council disbanded the bar. So there were a couple of projects that did get approved by staff, and they got approved by staff.
yeah.
And so, which is me. So that's
Yeah.
how they're there.
I wasn't trying to put anybody on the spot. I was just trying to better
Yeah.
understand what we were working with as far
transpired.
as, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I know there were also things that just went up without ever having touched the desk of the planning department.
I will tell you that the sign plan that was initially proposed by Aerosmith was quite different. So we did work with them for a
Sure.
long time on their logo and everything else, and we ended up with that particular design and locations.
But this is non-compliant in terms of its request because of the linear feet, right?
Yeah, I feel like Aerosmith sign would have been rejected had it come to you
Yes.
all because it doesn't have the dominant frontage. required. And that's
Exactly.
why
Yeah.
your suggestion for the directory sign makes sense.
Yeah.
And just to clarify, the 50 feet is for that unit, not for the entire building, right? Like,
The way it's written in the code is for businesses with dominant frontage of 50 feet or more only. So the way I measure it for multi-use occupancy buildings is the whole building.
the whole building.
That's why it
Like-
could be a stacked
Yeah.
three sign, like Park Place is a
Right.
whole building.
Could
with
have it, I
multiple.
see.
And
Yeah.
directory signs don't have a frontage requirement, just pole signs and ground signs
Got it.
to further complicate things.
Well, and it's a slippery slope, as Jennifer mentioned, and it's like, two wrongs don't make it all right, and then there's gonna be a third, and then there's going to be somebody at another business who says, well, I saw, because we get that very frequently. So it's a really tough situation when your neighbor gets privileges that you aren't allowed to have.
I mean, we could talk to them about the directory sign and have Aerosmiths take it down.
Well, and just to note that Aerosmith, the previous owner, it was in the exact same location and the exact same sign. All they did was change the text.
Yeah.
So that was approved. The previous ground sign was approved, I think it was almost in like 2000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that was part of the direction to allow it to happen.
Right.
I did see that.
Yes, please.
The location of the Aerosmith sign is really a long ways away from Paula's Pancakes. And it's not like we're all lined up
Right.
in a row here. So I don't feel that by putting a small little unit like that in the flower bed is really just, is making it turning into the, 405 freeway,
Right.
But Aerosmith's sign is really a long ways away.
Yeah.
It's not a long ways, but it's a long ways
it's on the
away
east
from all
end
the.
of the property, yeah.
And then again, of course, for us, which I mentioned earlier, is the landlord, it's up to him. And if we don't get this approved, we're stuck way back there, we just want a little sign out there so people can see us.
I'd be interested to sort of discuss the planters and circle back on the sign, just because we're talking about putting the sign in a pole in one of the planters, is that right? Is that
Not one of the planters.
Oh,
not-
that's right, in the
the brick.
the brick
Yeah.
planter,
Brick.
right,
Yeah.
got it, sorry.
The planters that we're putting in there are, if you've been to Park Place, you know
Yeah.
what those planters look like. They're dynamite.
Yeah,
We have one in our driveway, a sample one that,
They're shorter, ours are smaller.
ours are smaller,
yeah,
but, okay.
thank you.
I mean, the thing that Aerosmith's has this, they also have a wall sign. They got away with murder.
And they have the menu sign.
Yeah.
Yeah. The balance is going to have a big impact.
It will.
That's a lot of what the visual will be your valance. You can see that from the street, you can see that from the sidewalk, even more than you can see your carved signs will be the wording on the valance. It'll stand out. I hope that you'll be pleasantly surprised at how that draws people over.
So do you want to make a motion on the ground sign?
On sign 4.
Yeah,
So-
sign 4.
Again, I think, the code gives us the latitude to approve it even though they are outside the bounds. Is that correct?
Well, it gives us the latitude to approve it, but it's not to code.
Yeah, it's way out of code.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, whoever approved the municipal code notes that there may be circumstances in which
I guess.
we could
but that's
accept to
so-
it. And this is an unusual area.
But let's play it out. So if the third sign comes to us, are we gonna approve a third sign there with another planter?
It would seem as though there wouldn't be an option at
Right.
that point.
Well,
That's my concern
And
is
then
that,
and to Esther's point,
Okay?
the point is then, so then everybody else that's less square, less linear foot than the code will come and say, but you agreed to it down the street.
yeah, there's 3 of them there and it's only,
That's
yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
That will be setting that precedent, which is the concern. And I feel terribly bad about the
Yeah.
implication because I don't think Aerosmith should have had that approval. It's significant for such a small center, and yet it just like if we do it, we're really opening ourselves up to the future of saying, okay, well, you get a sign because you have a suite.
Well, it kind of reminds me of the Peterson Inn model that we've had to just kind of go up against over and over and over, where they painted over the half timbers and it
Right.
continuously comes up. And if I'm reading this correctly, that entire complex is less than a
Correct.
50-foot
Right.
frontage. So
Correct.
now we're already, it's not compliant to have even 1 ground sign, let alone 3. So that's.
I think you said, though, that what do you call that when it's
A
3?
directory
Directory
sign.
sign, the 50
Doesn't
feet doesn't
apply.
apply there,
Does
right?
not.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can do that.
So they
Right.
could do
Yeah.
that.
Right,
But
not
in
a
other words,
ground
it
sign.
doesn't apply, even if it was for the whole building, it doesn't,
It still doesn't fit.
doesn't
yeah.
fit, right.
So that's why Aerosmith is so far out of compliance.
Well, they're not out of compliance because it's been approved, but.
Well,
Well, that's correct. They're so far away from what is allowed within the
Code
code.
requirement, yeah.
Yeah.
Can I throw one more thing at y'all?
sure.
Lori and I were trying to do the mental gymnastics with this one and the directory sign and where it would be placed.
Yeah.
that was going to be my question, yeah.
Yeah.
In that planter.
Where the Aerosmith sign is
Well,
or the
other
new
one.
one. Okay.
Yeah,
Because that's a fixed,
element.
yeah.
I was just wondering with the entrance to Paula's Pancake being right there and all the people.
Coming from there. Is there any provision for having 2 directional signs? Sorry.
I don't think so. Sorry, let me
Directory
check.
Directory signs, sorry.
You wouldn't
Two
need to
directory
for
signs?
that size of center.
Yeah.
Again, I really feel like even at Aerosmith, I don't really see that ground sign very much, and part of it is the color. It's what I see is the valance. And that was walking by there as though I was, coming, down the street, not in my car. I got out and walked the area.
And unfortunately, what ended up happening during that period of time is that we also had what we were dealing with Solvang Brew. And so there was, and you can see with this, with the Aerosmith, oops, it's not on the screen. Oh,
Is that it? Do you want me to change?
yeah, you have all of the umbrellas and tables at Solvang Brew, plus the shrubbery that was there. And again, that planter was, that Aerosmith sign is in, has been there for probably 25 years.
Yeah,
And so there was a replacement of that particular sign for Aerosmith.
Was it Wandering
That
Dog
planter-
before?
That
Yep.
planter would be better for the directory, that one, because the visual is easier than competing with the umbrellas and all the people standing waiting, because you'd block it.
Yep.
People would be you wouldn't see it. I think that would be the better location.
Are those stanchions permanent stanchions, those little
No.
fences? And those are just to help guide the Paula's line of people?
No, that.
Well, to
that-
keep the
that's-
Paula's
that's
line of people
Gerlach-
out.
That's Gerlach's
Right.
attempt to keep
Yeah.
waiters out of his front courtyard.
Right, right.
Yeah.
and notice the aesthetic there that's occurring. That's what I was talking about, the visual clutter. And
Right.
that isn't necessarily, I'm not speaking to your business
I
in
understand.
particular,
Yeah.
Monike's,
There's a
but
number of businesses, right?
that really aren't the best look, and
It's, It's almost like that patio space was meant for restaurants, right? Because,
Yeah.
because you're not allowed to sell
Yeah.
outside your building
No.
unless there's a certain city thing going on and a
Right.
special sidewalk sale.
So there's so many
So what
things-
is that space for when you're talking about a retail space? And I can see wanting to cordon it off, but then what? Then, then what does it become, from there?
And the gentleman that has the gallery has probably filed a complaint against Paula every week for 2 years.
Yeah.
Well, and we'll come back to some of that on the next one for my conversation, but, so I think what it boils down to is that, for me, is there's not room in the code to make this work in this instance, in my mind. As much as we understand why you would want that, and life is definitely not fair in this case, if that is voted down.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say it too, but I agree, two wrongs don't make a right in this case, and I would rather see the Aerosmith's ground sign come down and have a directory sign put up. That's what I would really like to see, because then it would be fair, and then you would address all three tenants, and,
Well, yeah, again, I think if
You
there's
know.
any motion on this, then it ought to include directions to the staff to work with the landlord or the owner of the property to do that and present to the design review committee a proposal which, a proposal for a directory sign there that is going to be adequate, and provides an opportunity for all the three businesses there, I guess, to have adequate exposure. And what I think it probably, sort of is a middle ground, but it suggests that he has a fabulous sign that he wants to put there,
I know, it's a nice.
that he'd be allowed to
nice
do
looking
it
sign.
provisionally until we get a report back from the staff on the progress toward the installation, an appropriate solution here, and it fixes some of the problems that were done by staff that aren't here now, or by whoever, when we didn't have an operative design review committee or board of architectural review. But go ahead and,
It is a problem area. I think everybody
Yeah.
acknowledges that.
but,
Yeah.
I'd say, my deal is, we're not approving it forever. It's not like, two wrongs make a right. What we're doing is saying, we're gonna go put up the sign provisionally while we work on a directory sign. But is that,
I think it's a slippery slope.
okay?
And I think we have enough issues with the awnings and the valances and everything for this. I think we should work with the owner of the properties to see what we can come up with as first of all, meeting the design guidelines in the ordinance, and then come back, if we can't come to a solution, come back to you with options.
Okay, so do we just let this die for lack of a motion?
So I have one more question on a crazy idea. Okay, in this picture, you can see there's kind of this supporting wall with the
Right.
lantern on it. Is it possible to give them a protruding, projection
Yeah.
sign from there with that beautiful sign hanging with the
Yeah.
ornate grate? And then it hangs from this beam wall, and it does the same thing that was in the planter, but it actually even is architecturally better.
Yeah.
So from here, and it's a projection sign, and more visible. And you don't actually
Got a light.
compete with your height of
But
versus blocking
isn't that
it.
light?
So.
It could be
The
just.
light doesn't even work. Probably
So
hasn't worked in.
I don't know, this. if
Is that
you
part
could
of
give
a
them-
part of the property you're renting, that wall there?
And, I
Okay.
mean, you can also say that you want them to use the same, because they were gonna use a very ornate.
Yeah, no, I mean,
graphic,
I
so-
think if they can use the ornate metal from that position and do a projection sign, and it's to code, then I'm all for that.
Okay, I think you've stumbled on or not stumbled, you've come across an approach though, but we need the
Yeah.
specifics.
Yeah, if it's compliant, I mean, I know it has a different, right?
Do all the signs, okay.
Would be because it would need a 7-foot clearance from the sidewalk and not project more than 4 feet, so we can require that. And then
Well, and there's nothing, you can't walk underneath it, though.
Correct.
Right.
So, yeah.
I have one quick comment. The reason I didn't bring in the metal holder, because it was heavy. It's actually in the back of my truck. It's just one that goes around. It's solid black, and it's, you know, a little bit larger than that, and that's it.
Okay.
It was at the original store. We just took it off the building wall.
Yeah.
Plus, that lantern just is over.
I'm sorry, you need to-
Lantern. I don't have that picture.
Yeah, can you bring that picture back up?
If you look at that lantern that you were pointing out,
There you go.
Yeah,
okay,
there.
that is the building, okay?
Yeah.
And it's directly over the brick planter, so there's nobody walking
Right.
underneath it.
Yeah.
And there was another picture you had earlier that shows Paula's umbrellas.
Yeah,
If you look at that, their presence is overwhelming.
yeah.
Okay, overwhelming. They're constantly in our space. Okay, that's another reason why people just walk right by. We are easily missed, easily missed.
Yeah.
We've asked them to move, and I think the COVID
That, yeah, the umbrella's clearly over on your property.
it's every day, and we're just trying to make our presence known. I mean, you get 1 second of a
Well, so
person's attention when they go from Paula's. They don't see us. They might see Gerlach, they might see Aerosmith, but we're just sort of barely there. And so we've asked them to move the umbrellas. I think it got worse during COVID. I mean, it's just overwhelming.
Sure.
And we're just trying to make our own little space elegant and something that will draw people's eye. You've got the handicap sign there. That handicap sign
Yeah.
is smack
Yeah,
where
it is.
the Valance will be there.
Yeah.
But are you kidding me? You drive by, you're not going to see us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's just these things we're trying to solve. And then as far as like the brick planter has agapanthus and just a hodgepodge of
Yeah, there's a good
geraniums,
picture of it there.
and it attracts bees and flies. Those bees and flies come in our store. I had to buy an air curtain, and even then, it's difficult. And then if you look at the Aerosmith, they have a wooden planter, not an established brick
Right.
planter. Their wooden planter has, yeah, right there, the boxwood. Boxwood's very neat and tidy. You can trim it in a very tidy shape. It won't attract bees and flies, hopefully.
So the
But it's
other
almost on the bookend. I mean, it's
Right.
the idea of bookending the
Planters,
property,
yeah.
of the whole building, even though it's some other hedge on the other side that I don't know what it is. I'm just trying to bring a cohesiveness. And you can see
The
there's,
other option is that instead of down here, it could go up higher from that light.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is if you have that projection sign there, that umbrella can't be there.
That's right.
Because I can
Well,
understand,
that's what I
yeah,
was gonna say.
I don't know, they
What's
put
that?
their tables right next to all of
You know,
that. So you
Yeah.
see that one pot that is at the end of the brick? I mean, that, it's
Yeah.
not mine, it's theirs. It's busting
can
out
see
of
where
the
that wall
pot, it's overgrown. It's directly in line with all of Paula's planters and tables, if you look straight down the street.
Yeah.
So and there's plenty of space to walk. There's plenty of space, probably 4 feet of brick for people to walk. So we're not going to be encroaching any more of that space. It's just going to be a direct line. So the prior white marks, I have no idea what that was all about. It was somebody else, and I don't know how to get the white off of the brick.
You can see them on the brick.
yeah,
I don't know what it's paint or glue or what it
it's probably
is.
upside down spray
But
paint.
you can, that's not ours.
Yeah. Okay, that's good to know. So there's a lot of different issues at play here which are impacting you, which are out of our purview, but again, I've got some, I've been holding my thoughts on some of that. So back to the sign here.
Well, it seems to me that you're saying, the sign as proposed would not be approved. You're saying that you
Yeah.
provide direction to staff, that they work with applicant and the owner about an alternative location for the sign or a projection sign on that extreme west wall. I think they all sort of talk with staff of talking with enforcement and Paula's.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Paula's, make a lot of business, but, they're intruding on their neighbor's property. And I think that's something that ought to be noted, that would be part of any motion that's made.
Yeah.
Please.
Do you feel that you wouldn't be able to approve a projecting sign, given the elements they've given us? That they have the sign and what the bracket was going to be?
If it's within compliance for
Yeah,
the number of
consistent
square,
with what we've approved,
yeah.
I think we could do that today.
then I would be comfortable approving a projection sign, yes.
Okay. I think they have the square footage on here
I mean,
for this
that
sign.
could be made into a projection sign,
think-
and that's what we're
Yeah.
talking about, right?
Well,
That's what
originally-
Jennifer had suggested was
Yeah.
utilizing that sign as a projecting
Right.
sign, and let's look at the code. So this is for the village area. A projecting sign, the maximum size is 7 square feet, which that's like 3.75.
I think it was more about the total number of square
Yeah.
feet and signage and the number of signs as opposed to,
Yeah. That would take more calculation.
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, well, we can pass it with the,
We will, so we have the direction from the committee, and we'll report back when we meet again,
Okay,
what the resolution is.
Okay.
yeah, sounds good.
okay?
Do we need to make
Is
a
that,
motion?
is that
or-
a motion to that, or?
I think.
Well, it's
I
not
think-
approved,
Yeah.
the ground sign is not approved.
Yeah,
The.
Right.
Right.
And that's
the-
part of the
yes,
motion that ought to be
right.
made.
Yeah, so I guess
I'm
the,
just saying, I think it ought to be, include some of these other directions to staff regarding.
it'd be denied and
the-
then,
The projection sign, the enforcement
it
issue
could be,
regarding.
right, it could be a projection
encroachment.
sign if it's deemed per code, it could be as an option. Or it could be a directory sign if the landlord was so inclined to come back as an alternative for that. But either way, it's gonna require additional feedback and
Right,
conversation.
no question, yep, no question.
Right,
But, part of that to the landlord and the owners is the issue of a directory sign, given the congestion of businesses there.
so how do we proceed tonight?
I understand that there was a motion to deny the ground sign
as presented.
as presented. We will go back and work with the applicant and the owner on a directory sign for that area. And also
Or,
or
Or-
a projection
Yeah.
sign based on the standards. And also, we have some additional direction to work with Paula's on some of their encroachment into that space.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Any other comment?
Any public comment?
Any public comment? The Zoom room is empty.
they gave,
Sorry?
they gave up.
Okay, let's proceed then.
Dining.
Is that clear enough,
Yes.
please?
Very clear. And I also want to clarify that directory signs aren't included in the overall square footage, so you could do
So
both
essentially, possibly a
potentially.
projecting sign and a directory
Okay.
Yes.
directory sign.
And/or.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, and/or, right. Okay, so we seconded
And you're going to
it.
be working with them on a projection sign then?
Yes.
Well,
If
yeah,
it
or-
complies.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we need a vote.
Okay, ready to vote?
yes.
Yep.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Thank you all. Appreciate
Okay, now
appreciate your attention.
planters.
Yeah.
To the
very
members
good.
of the committee and the staff. Thank you. And thank you
Okay.
for your patience.
Well, we still have
We
one
have
other item.
planters.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. We still have a door and a planter.
Yeah,
Or in a planter.
so which, next is, I'm lost in my papers. What's next? Is it the door or the planter?
The door.
The next
Door.
is the door.
Okay, thank you.
Approved.
Well, can we handle the last two
I-
items as one?
What?
Yeah,
Wanna-
we,
Can we handle what?
The painted door and landscaping together,
No.
No.
okay? Is there a motion regarding the painted door?
I'll motion that we approve the door as painted and
Second.
presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comments? None? Go to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 401. Landscaping.
Okay, so this is where I've been alluding to, not so subtly. In walking the area, you were mentioning lining up with existing planters and this planter that's pictured by your sign where it's kind of breaking out of the pot. Before any definition of placement of the new planters is set, I would like staff to investigate where the space that you're allowed to occupy with those planters. And the reason I say that is that I believe that Paula's may be stepping into the sidewalk. And I say that from being there and watching it, there is not room for a wheelchair to go through hardly in some areas, and there's definitely not two-way traffic, unlike the area in front of Olson's and the other businesses along that area. So I would like to request that, that it be very clearly defined where you're allowed to put the planters, based on, you know, what's private versus public areas.
We'll work with the Director of Public Works.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, it's in regards to where they can put it.
Okay.
So, all that said, I wanted to kind of echo Joy's comment. If you define this kind of courtyard area, perhaps the applicant could tell us a little bit more, if you would step up to the mic if you're comfortable and tell us how you, I understand keeping the space open so people can get into your space, you don't have Paula's crowding in there. Do you have any other intent for the use of that space?
You want to talk about the planners? We think,
use of the space.
yeah.
Yeah, the new kind of delineated space, do you have a specific function for that space other than kind of just keeping it as your space is my question.
As far as putting things there to fill it,
I don't know.
I don't know that we have a specific thing, but we don't want it to be used as a parking place. It's been used to park bicycles,
Sure.
strollers. And these are people that go to eat at Paula's. And we're tired of it, okay? So it's just to define that we actually, the rent we pay according to the property manager goes all the way to the end of the brick, which includes the sidewalk that we pay rent on. So that was told to us. And the brick planter that's established there from who knows how long, provides plenty of space. All we're doing is just taking some pots and drawing a line that we don't have to put back and forth every day, and leaving a 4-foot space for people to walk through to our front door, then just turning the corner with a few pots, then allowing, I don't know how many inches, I wrote it in to you, Sophia, how many inches between us and Gerlach. There's enough open space. We told him we don't want to discourage anybody that would want to come in and shop. That's our purpose, is to establish that we're here with our business to open so you can come in and shop, but not just stand there and be on your phone and block other people from coming in and even seeing us. So we want to have this flow for the three of us. So we don't block that with any pots. It's wide open. We've explained that all to him, and he's totally happy about it. He's very happy because he doesn't want to keep putting his wooden things out every single day.
Yeah, which don't look good.
Okay, 13 feet. And I mean, it might sound ridiculous, but honestly, there are people that park their stuff.
That you've
And I don't know
explained a
why,
lot.
but they do, and if they
Yeah.
should take it with them.
No, I
Yeah.
can visualize it. I know
Yeah,
exactly
we
what-
all
It's-
know. Yeah, we've seen it
We want to
happen.
have a nice presence, a welcoming presence, an upscale, like classy presence. And I don't feel that Paula's fits that role, even it's been there and established, and I have a lot of respect for it, but we're different.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and you need to have your your business be able to be accessed and not blocked.
Yeah.
And I completely understand. I just didn't know if there was, if you were gonna put a table out there for
No.
people, because who'd be sitting, there'd be other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Right, yeah,
You could rent them all this.
enough said, yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
And then it looks like your intent is to have, just to clarify, that you were gonna have it open between you and Gerlach there, so it's not a solid barrier. Yeah,
No, it's huge,
Yeah.
13 feet.
13
okay,
feet.
that was
So
13
it goes to
feet.
the wood planter.
Yeah,
You're gonna
No.
continue,
No.
no?
No.
Oh, you're
No,
not
the
gonna.
wood-
Be open in front
Yeah.
of Gerlach, so
Yeah.
it'll go from the brick planter, like to the line where Gerlach is,
Oh,
and then there'll be an
oh,
open
oh,
space,
oh.
and then there'll be Aerosmith's little patio
Mm.
area.
yeah.
So has Gerlach considered doing something where
Right.
they have a complementary element?
says- He says that's a possibility. He wants to know how much they cost, and we have no problem telling him, but I highly doubt that he will do anything. That's my guess. But he's excited that we're doing it because it's going to improve the whole area.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's very excited. We get along with him really well.
So, just one other element to this is, when we did go through COVID, you'll remember we had the parklets, and we had a number of different concepts. The wine barrels were used quite a bit, and we ended up with a standard that pretty much Rennie had brought forward, which is very similar to this.
yes.
He still has some of these in front of his building. And so if we're going to set a standard, that was definitely one that the Chamber of Commerce and the city and the BDC, the Branding and Design Committee, had fallen into as something that could be a standard for planters within the city. So this kind of mirrors what was previously done.
Yeah, I think the black, the aesthetic here works as long as it's not, your business has this look and the next business has the wood look and the next business has, terracotta pots. It's the cohesiveness. And that will elevate the appearance for all if it's a cohesive look. And that was why I asked if your neighbors had, indicated that they might be building on what you're starting here or proposing to start.
It's kind of a shame that the building, when it was, conceptualized, they didn't make a plan for that, because really, just this broad area, I mean, I don't know when this building was built, or who knows, maybe there used to be parking there or something. I know that things have changed a lot over the years, and it just seems such a sort of wide space, and if there had been more brick just put along the front, that would have tied all three of the units in, which would have been, I mean, I realize in retrospect, it's just a pipe dream, but.
Or was it different function for the business when it was built and it was
Sure,
renovated? and all?
yeah,
Yeah,
And it was the wild, wild west with with the COVID thing.
Oh, sure.
Paula's especially, I mean, they're moving all kinds of barriers out in the middle of the street and so forth and so on, and they had to they wanted to maintain a space for serving customers, and they've, pressed the edges of that and exceeded them.
my comment on the plants is that the pansies will look very nice. Are there something you're gonna be changing out quarterly then? Because of course pansies are seasonal, so they're not gonna last for very long. So as long as you have a plan going forward beyond pansies.
I'm working with Bob at Windmill Nursery.
Great.
So he advises me
Good.
as my
Yeah.
neighbor, and we'll probably put in white million bells or maybe lantana or something that'll just bring a little pop of color. So
It'll-
be consistent.
Good.
Won't be a
that was.
hodgepodge.
Yeah, and I think that pop of color will also, again, elevate it and bring the eye there. Those are all good things.
And the boxwoods, I believe are drought tolerant for the most part, once they're established. So I just want to point that out, because that would be an important factor for me. I realize some of the more ornate or, colorful plants, those are going to get switched out. But it would be nice that some of the things that are stationary are drought tolerant, so that's a good thing.
And again, it's replicating
Right.
what's next door rather than giving another new aesthetic to
Yeah.
it, so.
Do y'all want to see what it looked like in 2008?
No,
No?
no, I do, but
Yeah,
I
actually, yeah.
so
Laser,
I
can you bring it up?
I just wanted to say that I think the black
Oh, interesting.
pots are,
The pots,
yeah,
2008.
Wine barrels?
yeah.
interesting.
But it actually
All
looks
those,
less
umbrellas are a lot
cluttered.
smaller.
Yes.
Yeah.
It looks less cluttered than it does today.
So I think the pots, I mean, when Rennie first brought them, I think it was fine. They kind of disappear. I guess what I'm just challenged with is, again, the quantity and the different size dimensions and mix of it. I'd rather see something more simple, so one design, one pot, whether you go with round and you space them appropriately, or if you go with rectangular and you space them appropriately. But I think when you're doing this kind of Lego thing with the round and then it looks more cluttered than it needs to be. So I would just recommend that you stick with something more simplistic and fewer of them, and not the combo. This feels, it feels like you're trying to create a barrier versus just a beautiful kind of, border, to me.
I'd be interested to see, and we probably don't have access to this, but you keep mentioning the ones at Park Place, which these are modeled after. Are they, over there, do they have both the circular and the rectangular?
Yeah.
And- Yeah, I can't remember, or I didn't,
And they
didn't go look.
look like they're creating barriers.
They are.
kind of
Yeah,
hodgepodgey,
yeah, it's the
Yeah,
same
they would
feeling.
admit it.
Also, remember that building is such a different aesthetic.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally different.
Yeah, that's why I would
Can I
echo
make
your
one comment?
sentiment.
Were the, in regard to your, regarding where our neighbors, Paula's has a planter,
Yeah.
a circular one there, that one's going bye-bye.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going, we're putting ours there, and then
Yeah.
we're putting next to that a 4-foot one, or 3-foot, whatever it is. Then we're putting circular, and then we're gonna have 4 feet open.
Yeah, no,
Then we have
yeah,
another circular.
yeah.
And then we come up this way with another one, circular, and then underneath the windows, 2 of those. So it's pretty simple.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure that you're gonna be able to go out as far as that round planter that's now at the end of the brick planter. That's one of the things that the city needs to look at, how far out you can go.
Yep,
It's the
property
same
line.
size as ours, pretty much.
Right.
Ours is actually smaller.
So, but to Roger's point, would you say that again, Roger?
We need to maintain 48 inches of accessible path. We need to maintain 48.
Yeah, turn it on.
Take 3. We need to maintain 48 inches of accessible path per ADA.
That's what it is, 48.
Yeah,
People
so
can-
if it is, then you're good.
It is.
If it's not, then it needs to
But-
be, 48 inches needs to be maintained.
Roger, to clarify, that's the entrance that goes straight to his front door. The space between the planter and the sidewalk is also 48
Well,
inches.
The,
Yeah, or
the
is- or am
the
I-
side, the sidewalk, so basically face a curb,
Yeah,
back needs to be 48 inches.
that's my point, Harlan, because I think that's not at all followed, that's not compliant over there. And if that becomes compliant, you aren't gonna have quite as much space as you're envisioning.
Yeah.
So that's why I asked city staff to make sure that before you get these planters and place them, that you know the allowable footprint where you are allowed to place them.
Well, and I know we're not making decisions on Paula's, but I do think it's worth noting the heaters on the sidewalk, which I can't imagine are in compliance.
No.
That obviously takes up even more space. The question would be, when you say from curb, because there's not really a curb here, there's a separation of the pavers to the parking lot. There's about a foot or 2 feet or something between the parking bumpers. So where would that 48 inches start? Or you might be able to see it better in this picture, like, so you see here's a parking bumper, and then there's this area where the asphalt meets the pavers. So where would that 48 inches need to start? From the bumper or from the actual, because there is no curb there.
I think is it where the pavers
It,
start?
it would be where the sidewalk, where the established sidewalk is.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
so it would basically be the pavers. Now, bear in mind, I'm not exactly sure where the property, who's in charge of what.
Right,
This is a
sure.
Caltrans route, so it's
Right.
technically it's not a city sidewalk. It's a Caltrans sidewalk. So they would be the ones enforcing it, but they go by this, they would be a little more strict.
Right, sure.
Well,
To be
and
honest with you. And-
that's why I know that Paula's isn't allowing a 48-foot walkway through there.
Right, 40
That's-
inch, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
40-inch, 48.
48 inches is what.
48
4
inches,
feet.
4 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it isn't even 3 feet in spots there.
I can see here,
Yeah,
though, of
it-
course, that you've got,
There are allowances around
That's your end.
signposts
Signs and trash
Right.
cans.
Things like
and-
that.
Yeah,
You can go down to 36 for a very short distance.
yeah.
In fact, some findings, you can go actually down to 30. But it's got to be, that has to be approved by the ADA authority, which in this case is Caltrans, because it's theirs. And you got to get that in writing. It's tough. It's got to go to Sacramento to get approval for something like that if you really get pushed.
So I hope that, although you're not Sacramento, that's why I said I hope staff can help guide them in if there is something approved tonight where they can be set, so that you aren't buying and setting stuff up only to find out that you aren't compliant, and that same standard is set for your neighbors in that case. So that did not all resolve the planter conversation, however.
It appears like it's 48.
I'm with Jen a little bit, it does feel a little cluttery. It's hard to say when there aren't plants in there, right? I know that you're not gonna wanna plant things that are gonna take up too much visual space in front of your building, because you want your building to be seen. And, as anytime you first plant things always look a little less, there's more emphasis on the planters than there are on the plants, and then eventually that changes. So I'm like you, it feels a little disjointed to me with the circle and this, even though I get I totally understand where you're coming from with that. But I feel like possibly once the plants mature a little bit, I would be hopeful that would kind of fade out a little bit.
Yeah, it's a preference.
Yeah.
It's not a directive. I think it's cleaner if you just stick with one shape. It looks nicer in my mind, but I'm not gonna dictate it. It's a preference. It's a personal design choice. on
I
my
have to
part.
say something for my wife. She
Okay.
really understands plants.
Yeah,
We've had many discussions, especially with her daughter who does the same type of stuff, but they've been very sensitive to how high these are getting and the whole thing. Very sensitive to that, right?
You all have clearly put a lot of thought into it, and not just, I think, on your behalf, but on behalf of what looks right for the town, so we appreciate that.
Yeah.
That's clear,
Yeah, that's right.
yeah,
Okay, let's wrap this
yeah.
item up, please. It's landscaping is the last item. Is there a motion regarding landscaping?
I'll motion to accept the landscaping plan as presented, as long as it falls within the guidelines for the easement or handicapped access and all of that.
Okay?
I'll second that with the encouragement that you very carefully consider our comments in regards to rectangles and circles.
Okay.
Comment?
Any other comments?
I think and also would we have some direction from you to work with the adjacent business to do similar?
Yes,
Yeah,
can we add that?
Okay,
sure.
on the landscaping stuff, yeah, good.
Should we revise that? So the motion would be to accept the landscaping plan as presented, and the suggestion that, along with the property owner and the corresponding businesses,
to be consistent.
to be consistent, yeah. I think that if this came back and say, the gentleman in the middle, who's, I'm sorry, I can't remember the name, the photo place, if they came back to us with a different set of planters, then I would have a hard time with that, I think, proving that. Yeah, I think with the idea that everything becomes more consistent on that frontage space.
Well, and that's why I was recommending the rectangular planters, because that is the consistency out at the edge of the sidewalk, and then I find that the round planters against the building work well, but you're starting to add another visual element. You've got a brick rectangle, a wood rectangle, and now you've got
Yeah.
black
Rectangles.
rectangles and black circles.
Yeah.
So that's where the hodgepodge thing comes in. So the consistent would be at least the shape, if not the material.
That would be nice if the planters came in the right sizes, but they don't.
Yeah.
With our constraints, there was no way to have just rectangles, okay? You could have rectangles and squares, maybe, but we just don't have that much space, and so I was constricted in my own space, and to try to like turn a corner and to still be cohesive, you know, rectangles and squares are basic shapes. So they don't make
And it's what it's
the
also what's at the
size
park, too.
hot to be the right size and to turn the corner and to allow the space to walk in my little world. So that's how I had to be creative to do that.
Okay.
Does that
I
make
understand the
sense?
motion does not require something other than what they're proposing.
It's not
Is it other
available.
than, you're asking that they consider, that they
That's
review, that
correct.
they,
Yep.
you know, they're emphasizing a recommendation to look at it, they're not requiring it.
Yeah.
And remember, those dimensions may change depending upon what staff directs you to. So that may influence the shape.
Is there any question about
Well,
that?
I second the amended, like I seconded the first, I'll second the amended.
Okay?
Okay.
All in favor, say aye.
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 401. Great.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye. Appreciate your patience. Yes, we're breaking 5 minutes. journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
I'm gonna talk about it.
I figured you did. I didn't think you were just ignoring.
Bite at a time.
I knew I was gonna see you.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, everybody, for your patience and efforts on this. It got complicated, and I'm glad that you stuck with it until we got to a mutually acceptable point. That was good. So, we are, we are going to be talking about the community design element of the general plan. We've been lucky that Esther and Jennifer have represented the Design Review Committee on the GPAC committee, and I know they've been, their efforts have represented the DRC well on that. And I understand that again, this is for the record, everybody knows that, but that they will continue in their role on the GPAC through completion, as, continuing their contributions to that.
Whether or not we're sitting up.
Regardless of whether they're whether they choose to be on the DRC or apply for the next term or whatever it is. So we're thankful to them, and we're also thankful to Sophia and Lori as well for your efforts on behalf of our interests here in the DRC.
And Roger as well.
And Roger as well, of course, that's right. Roger is also a crack traffic monitor. I know that from the Yule Fest parade. Okay, so,
I think what we'll do is do
Yep.
a presentation, just where we are today
okay,
and what are transpiring. Since we had a change in direction, we've been working with the consultants to move all of the elements forward at the same time. The housing element is driving the ship as far as how, because that particular element needs to be approved by a state agency called Housing and Community Development. And in order for that to happen, we need to have additional public review on Thursday. What's today? That's Thursday. We put the announcement out for the housing element. It is a 30-day review period. The housing element package includes a policy document, a housing needs assessment, and an affirmatively affirming fair housing. And so those documents are now out for public review for 30 days. After that period of time, the housing element will have about, the consultants will have about 10 days to complete any iterations, changes, whatever. We will have that document then go to the city council on January 23rd for additional discussion on the requested changes or comments that came out from the public. And on February 13th, we will have a package that will include the housing element plus all of the other elements that have been edited, changed, commented on over the next 2 months. Have them review and bless it to move forward for environmental review. So this is still an iterative process. There's still a lot of public comment involved, but there's two basic touch points. And one of them is the February 13th meeting being a direction from the city council to file the draft housing element to HCD. It won't be a completed document, but at least we will have provided a working progress to the Housing and Community Development. And we start the environmental review process, which in most cases, the environmental review process is going to be about 6 to 8 months. So we basically have most of 2023 to work through all of these elements. So your input, the GPAC's input, Planning Commission and City Council on all of these elements is critical, but understand that there's still more work to be done. The document that you have, you can see it's quite a work in progress with lots of edits. The GPAC went through it thoroughly at the last meeting.
Last week.
Again,
Fourth time, yeah.
Fourth
time.
meeting, 3.5 hours
Yeah.
each time.
Wow.
So,
Yeah, and it was unfortunate that one of the meetings, or one and a half of those meetings, the record wasn't clear, and so kind of had to start over. So we appreciate all of the work that the GPAC did. So tonight, we'd like, I think, probably Esther and Jennifer to kind of walk through some of the changes that were made and suggestions and direction that we're going.
Lori, perhaps, I think before Jennifer and I speak, can you or Sophia speak a little bit as to how this works with new codes, new regulations, and how that all comes together? I think that would be really helpful.
Go ahead, and then I'll fill in.
So the way that the consultants wrote the community design element is taking our old community design element that I think was approved in 1988, and then also taking the design guidelines and adding them in there, and also adding just new design guidelines. So their intention is that the community design element also essentially be the design guidelines, and then anything that we are requiring, so their objective design standards, will be going in the municipal code. So their intention is that we will not have a separate document called the design guidelines. It's the community design element, and it's the municipal code. Does that help?
The design guidelines, did I use that terminology properly, within the general plan, they need to be specific, but also looking forward for, a couple of decades, whereas the municipal code, that would be easier to change
Yes.
as time goes on? Not that the general plan
You're
wouldn't
right.
be reviewed, but.
Yes. So to change the community design element, we'd have to go through a general plan amendment process, and to change the code, like sign regulations, for example, are under Title 11. So the requirement is that those first go through they would go through y'all for changes, and then we'd actually have to take them through the planning commission and then to council for final ratification. So it's still a process, but I mean, we do code changes all the time, it feels like.
Whereas this is
Yeah.
kind of a
This-
larger,
yes.
broader overview. So just to kind of
Yes.
clarify that.
Yes, this is I like to call it like the 30,000 level view of what is it that we want Solvang to continue to be? How is it that we want it to change, if at all? And how are we going to hold folks to this in the future? So there are, I believe, policies in this section as well.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to be keeping track of how we're adhering to this section of the general plan.
And the consultants may have some thoughts on that. Do you want to start, Jennifer? or
No,
you
so I was
start?
just gonna round it out to say, one, it's 40 years out, I think, was the time horizon that we were working to. Second was the idea that you got rid of this ancillary document called the design guidelines, so that's all the high-level, forward-leaning view is presented here, backed up by code that would then support that high-level view, right? So that's sort of the order of operations.
I do want to say, as a staff member that reviews all the projects, it makes it a lot easier to have it like all in, because I
Right.
utilize a code, so it just makes it a lot easier to have it all in that place.
Rather than have out here
And for us.
design guidelines.
Yeah, and for y'all
floating around.
as well.
Yeah, it's been
Yeah, that's
our
right.
biggest
Oh, absolutely.
challenge
Yeah.
is trying to figure out what we're supposed to be doing, and working with them.
So part of the work that's happening here, as mentioned by Jennifer, was that the general plan right now is titled 2040 General Plan. Well, time is ticking, and we're only 17 years away from that. And so the conversation that will be happening as we go towards initiating the environmental review is, should this horizon be 2045? What that would do is take 3 housing cycles within that framework. So we can still work on the housing element, but not radically change all of the other elements in that period of time. This is almost a $800,000 effort. And so you don't want to have to repeat that on a regular basis. So,
Well, and not even just the money, it's the amazing amount of time it takes.
Huge.
From the community, from all of us who are on the committee, from all of you on staff. It's a tremendously large undertaking, and I'm really glad that you figured out that 2045 thing. That kind of was new, so that was good.
And I don't know if, I'm just going to add this clarification. So the housing element cycles are 8-year cycles where they use a formula to determine how many, it's called our Regional Housing Needs Assessment, or our RHNA, how many units we need to contribute in the state of California and in our jurisdiction to our goal.
so the discussion here tonight is if there's anything, well, there's obviously a lot of work that's gone into this, and a lot of changes. And I don't know necessarily if you want to go page by page, but if there's particular items that you'd like to discuss.
I think we can
Oh,
also
I'm sorry,
just-
there was one
Yeah,
other
go
point I
ahead.
wanted to make,
Okay.
sorry.
Yeah.
In regards to the general plan, community design element, our current design guidelines, and the ordinance, the direction that we're going now is actually almost being mandated by state anyways, because the state requires that you move away from subjective standards, and they have to be objective standards. So when we start talking about some of the things that we'd like to see, particularly for housing, we need to be very clear what we want in the ordinance and what we want for design standards, or we can't, the applicant doesn't have to follow it.
Right.
So objective goal, design guidelines are really the critical thing right now.
So that's a good segue, though, to the way this is also laid out, just for Patrick and for Joy's knowledge, is one very thoughtful approach to this was the idea of the areas and the different design areas of the community. So we did define the village area as having one design vernacular, and then the mission area as another design vernacular, and then all other areas. But we did that because, again, to try to drive that objectivity in specific
Right.
subsects of the community, so that it would become very clear, this is mission, this is the old Danish, I just confused the two old world Danish, so that they're not mix and match.
Right.
They're very, very precise, specific areas. So that was sort of also one of the framework that we worked on early on.
And I think that was really significant. Hey, I wanted to also mention, we have 2 variations of the
Yeah.
same information here. So define for us, the first one is the most recent that incorporates from our meeting this past week, or is it the other way?
So both of them do. So one is the
Is
with
the
red
line-
lines, so it shows all the changes that the GPAC recommended.
That's your first
That's the
set.
first one, so that's attachment A. And then attachment E is accepting all those changes. So it's
The
the
clean
version
copy.
should, y'all agree with everything the GPAC recommended.
So the clean copy, it still has comments.
Yeah.
It still has the comment boxes, but it's accepted all of the
Of the other
revision
changes.
Yeah.
So that was a hope, so that if you guys needed to read it without all the revisions, which were significant, it would be an easier read for you.
Well, and I think when you look at it, my comments would be, you can see how there's so much that's been, strike-throughs and rewritten, worked. This has been my primary focus on the GPAC, has really been, my primary contributions have been on this, because of course that's, kind of part of what I do. And the committee is a very good committee. I think I've been saying all along with this committee, by the time we're done, we will have figured out what we're supposed to have been doing that we wish we would have known the day one. So we're definitely learning on the job, and we've got some people who have experience within our volunteer group that's very significant. The mention that Jennifer gave with the design districts was significant. So basically, kind of from the mission and the Vets Hall,
Right.
that away, down towards Nilsson Market becomes that new district, which certainly aligns with things such as Sansom Clinic project that has come in front.
Right.
And the discussions with at
St.
St.
George,
George
yeah.
with the old lumber mill project. There's an area in here where we're talking about the Danish design. And I wanted to just, what page, oh, these aren't numbered. Yeah, let's see, I've got the 2 copies here, and. Yeah, there's no numbers. Oh, yeah, there is.
Yeah.
They're just in the side here because of the comments.
So it's
Page
CD
22. Yeah,
22?
CD 22 where it starts.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of conversation about this with roof and infill and looking at this, again, it really helped. It was important that they had committee members from this group, because I could certainly look at it from the perspective of how this was gonna be used. So to me, this is a part that we have been implementing frequently in our discussions up here. There's going to be some language that ties this in more cohesively, because it just kind of jumps out all of a sudden without a kind of introduction. And that will come, I believe, before any of this is completed. These elements, I believe, will be very significant as the code is put forward. And likewise, the mission district elements as well. So there'll be a whole new set of codes that go along with this new mission district that do not exist at this time. Do you guys, Joy, Pat, do you have questions or things that, we've missed? Because again, I think what's
No.
really, we're gonna be going over this again,
Yeah, right.
no
Yeah, so
doubt.
I had a recommendation, just, again, I think I said this to the GPEC the other night too, was just, I think it does help, forget the revisions for a minute, because I think there's so much there that we kind
Right.
of already hashed through. If you can start reading with the clean version, and then if it's disconnected to you, or you see issues where we're contradicting ourselves, or we've left ourselves open to some kind of debate, that's where I said, I think that's where we're exposed, which is, I said I'd like to see the list from staff's perspective on what they see with their background and what they know we're up against, and do they see holes and/or areas where we might get upside down, right? So I think, because when you're in it, the way we've been in it, it's kind of harder for us to see that, because we've been slogging through every
Yeah.
line. And so you kind of get fatigue of a document, and I think that's why it would be great to have a fresh pair of eyes.
Absolutely.
Look at it and say, this doesn't make sense, or this error, and that would be helpful, I think, too.
I think it's kind of like that proverbial, you can't see the forest for the
Yeah.
trees.
Yeah.
We've been in there for
Yeah.
so
You
long.
got a word that you know is spelled right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And to me, I think one of the elements that came up tonight made me kind of think that I want to reread through this, and that is the old world Danish architecture, but also the more contemporary Danish modern. And there is no room for that in this
Yeah,
document.
it's not even addressed.
And
We took it out.
well, and I think that there needs to be something that
I don't
comes back in and speaks to that, because to me, my vision of Solvang being able to continue to be a vibrant community in 20 or 30 years means that it also has to evolve. And what is
Yeah.
that evolution gonna look like?
Yeah.
that evolution to me needs to incorporate some more contemporary.
Yeah.
And not to kind of toot our horn at the museum, but I will a little bit for a second, is that, we've got this new pergola and this new solar structure, which is, very modern, and yet it ties in to the old world aesthetic very well. At least I think, and Pat, you're
Absolutely.
familiar
I think
with
it's
it.
great.
That we need to find ways that can happen within this design guideline, and I feel like that it's too restrictive, and perhaps I'm a one-off on this.
No, I think you're dead on. I think the reality is, and that's why I was trying to make that point earlier, where I don't think that there's anything wrong with modern Danish influences at all. I think it's a matter of where and the placement still. And I do think, like, look, the Louvre is the classic example. They put the pyramid out in front, and you've got half of Paris, it says it's an abomination, and half of Paris says it's beautiful. Now, 20 years into it, they would never remove that thing. If they would never take the pyramid out. And so I think you do have to allow for progress. You don't want to stamp it out, cookie cutter, stucco solutions, and everything looks like a strip center. But you don't need everything to be old style everything, because we're not a theme park.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, and the other part of it too is that I kind of use this term visual clutter and visual overload, too much visual stimulation. Sometimes it's nice just to have a quiet place. And part of the guidelines that we're tasked with now, should there be some new construction, is building right up to the front of the street. And that's been one of my bones of contention ever since this document was first written. And an example of an exception to that rule that required a zoning variance is over at the Home Connection, kind of across from the post office and Hotel Cork, where they were at first required that all the buildings be right out to the front of the street, and they got the variance to allow that kind of front yard,
Setback.
courtyard, and that kind of breezeway walk through. And that's what makes it a nice building. So, thinking about these things, and, we look at not having any open spaces particularly to build, but those are really old buildings in the downtown. Should there be a fire in a restaurant? Should there be an earthquake? We may be looking at something where there is a whole new
And not
area-
rebuilding what we have.
Right,
Yeah.
that something may happen from the ground up, but it could be that somebody comes in and says, I want to do something here. So we need to look at it from that perspective, not just that there's hardly any spaces to build, but
Yeah.
just assume that there's
There
some
could be.
spaces.
I grew up in Paradise where the entire town burnt down.
Well, I'm not
And-
thinking
No,
that.
and I don't think, I think that's
'Cause that
unlikely to
comes
happen
into
here.
Yeah,
But-
certainly it'd be
and then-
revisited.
And then you revisit it. But
Yeah.
the idea that, as you're saying, or even just on a personal level, my house in town is in the TRC, and really the stipulation is that you either build it inside the code, of course, or back up a minute. If it were to burn down, then that we would be subject, even though it was built in 1923 or 22 or whatever, we would be subject to, what are the code standards now, of course. And that's different. And that is something to think about in the future, is, as you said, if, God forbid, the
Yeah.
spice shop building burnt down or something happened, or somebody bought it and wanted
Right.
to redevelop it,
Right.
that's another
Yeah.
option.
Right.
How does that fit in, in the future? I agree.
Yeah, so it's kind of like taking that higher level view. But I was thinking about this, because we had this marathon meeting last week too, and how that old and new integrated, and it was after the meeting when I kind of like, oh, and then tonight just reinforced that. So I think that's something that I would like to bring up with the group, when we have another meeting.
So one of the things that that the consultants believe we will get a kickback on our housing element is in the downtown and in the village area. And because the standard has been set, everybody agrees that the height limit should be 35 feet. Well, most higher density residential projects now are 4 stories.
Yeah.
And so, that is going to be one of those things where if somebody wants to do added floors to a building or building over the parking structure, anything that's tied to housing may be one of those provisions in the design guidelines as well as in the housing element that will allow to go to a higher elevation. But right now, what's being proposed is that they'll hold the 35-foot across the whole village area. And we'll see how it's received by the state.
Yeah.
And I think that was really, there was like no discussion particularly about that. Everybody was pretty much adamant that the only thing that go above that be an embellishment, your stork on the roof.
Yeah, to maintain the views of
The
the
tower.
rural
Well,
hillsides.
but
I
it
mean,
also
that,
reflects people's view about some of the housing requirements imposed on us by Sacramento. I mean, and it says, I don't care what they're saying.
Yeah, you're gonna have to do it. And.
No, I'm saying, what this is saying is, if we're gonna limit our, the easy solutions, or whatever, we're not gonna chase the housing, requirements perhaps, as if it's gonna adversely affect the community.
Although
That's not right.
maybe we won't have any choice, and that ultimately is
Yeah.
what's happening, is there's not necessarily a choice.
I
And
think there's choices.
I think on that note, I had some pretty strong reservations about Ed St. George's proposal for the corner project
Oh, yeah.
there at Alice Allen Mission.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing that I could say was big compliments was the visual corridor remained opened. Because he could propose something of multi-levels, like just across the street, and imagine what the view would be coming into
Yeah,
town.
right.
Now you just have these tall buildings and you can't see those beautiful mountains that we're known for until you turn the corner and you're looking down the street.
Right.
So,
And there was a project approved at that corner for, I think it was 2.5 stories at one time.
yeah, kind of basically like
Yeah.
across the
Yeah.
street.
That's a
Yeah.
good point.
So our challenge during the next couple of months is to go through the document again when you have time, and we'll have this discussion when we come back in February. And, we will have been moving this towards the environmental review, but we want to make sure that your comments are included in the document that is reviewed through the environmental review.
And I feel like it's important to mention that our committee composition may be different.
Yes.
So if you're not on the committee anymore, how you can provide comment is you can just send it to me.
Just as public comment, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you don't get it done before New Year's, that doesn't mean you
Yeah,
aren't
your
still
term ends,
responsible.
yeah. December 31st.
One last question on that February deadline, just to kind of clarify, and I know I've asked this before, but just remind me. So once it's that date and it's presented for an EIR, work can continue within committees, but it isn't going to go to any public comment. Nothing's going to happen until it comes back from, comments come back after the EIR. Did I say that correctly?
You did. We cannot continue offering, how did the consultants phrase it the other day? It was so good.
You don't want to keep moving the goal.
Yeah, you can't keep moving the goalposts. So
Right.
the EIR needs to be initiated on basically as completed or draft as possible, and then they'll initiate it. It'll come back for there'll be another public comment period on the EIR specifically. So we can gather comment in that time to potentially add in later, especially because I think Lori's made this point many times, is the community design element shouldn't have huge impacts on the EIR, right?
Yeah, I mean, the only section you're really affecting is, in the environmental review portion, is visual resources.
I see.
And, but for the most part, the other elements such as housing, land use, circulation, those are the ones that are really driving the environmental review.
Right.
Yeah.
So we look,
Housing is really.
forward
this is
to-
all of them.
so we look forward to, and the other part of this whole process is making sure that the 8 elements that we're working with are consistent with each other. So, one policy can't usurp another one in a different element. So last month, I read through every single document at one time and, provided input as to what I saw as inconsistencies. And so the consultants are working on that right now because they've been working this in tranches. And it's kind of good to have somebody comb through the whole thing. And that's what the environmental review consultant's going to do, is review everything and make recommendations also.
And clearly, there's, inconsistencies that have developed over time, and even just as simple as terminology. And the old world Danish is what's been adopted by the committee, and that isn't even necessarily consistent in the way it's used. So all those things, come into play. Those are simple things.
This might seem silly, but, so on the first page, and I know this is just a draft, but we have Lansby, right? That's the Lansby, isn't it?
Oh, that picture,
yeah.
there's a note.
There-
That
is there a
picture,
note?
yeah,
Okay.
that picture will be replaced.
I'm looking at the, other
Yeah.
version of it, so,
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
we had there's a lot of
Yeah.
comments about pictures.
I did see that in some
General
of the other areas,
comments
yeah.
about pictures was that there's too many
Mm.
also, and that it takes up so much space. It's making our report a lot longer
Interesting.
than it needs to be, so.
All the pretty white space around the, the
Is
top
getting wasted.
borders and stuff, let's make it more
Right,
consolidated.
sure.
But I'm working with pictures, but we just decided to wait until we see.
Yeah,
to-
I saw that I was looking at the other version and I saw there was comments on pictures. I
Yeah.
just thought it was funny. 'cause
Yeah.
Like,
it's-
No, we've
the
had-
worst
Beautiful
example.
picture. I mean, it's such a beautiful picture. I mean,
There's a
it's just,
ton of
but-
comments.
Yeah.
People, we've spent a lot of time talking about pictures.
Yeah.
And
And all the
maps.
other elements have
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
pictures now,
Yeah.
too.
Right.
Yeah,
And the right logo.
Well,
and
Yes.
this,
the
and-
other general comment about maps is that none of us believe that the maps were adequate size and they're not legible.
Yeah.
And so,
That's true.
while we might know what they intend, if you just pick it up, it's very hard to understand what
agree
you're
with that.
actually reading.
yeah, and they can, definitely confirm that, because even at our meetings, we
Yeah,
have, it's like,
we-
where's
And
that?
it's, I mean,
Yeah.
people want to know.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
So one of the
Right. Yeah,
requests that we've
exactly.
made is, as we go into these January and February dates, is have full-size printed maps, like the ones hanging here, so that we can really zero in
That's
on the
great.
different blocks and the different colorings and everything else,
Yeah.
that we have something that we can really see.
and when this is all completed and adopted, there should be like along the wall.
Yep.
On the new wallpaper, no.
I do want to say, if you want to provide comment now before the initiation of EIR, you'd have to get comments to me by probably early to mid-January, we're very short-staffed, so just to give time to
Okay.
prioritize it. Yeah, let me be specific.
Okay.
Hold on.
You need to have comments by.
And will you send that out in the email, or do you want us to note that today?
I can send it out via
Would you, that
email,
would be
just
helpful.
BCC you all.
Yeah,
Okay, good.
and even if you do it after Christmas, it's like a poke
Okay.
reminder. I mean, I don't think you have to do it tomorrow, at least not on my account, but.
Let's say that for now, the 13th of January, it's a Friday.
Okay.
Oh, Friday the 13th, that's easier to remember.
Yeah. And then I'll follow up.
Okay.
And that works well with the comments to the housing element, which are due on the 15th of January. And so that will give us time for the consultants to add all of these comments into the version that we're shooting for on February 13th.
Yeah.
GPAC meets, did we set a date? I didn't
No.
think so. Okay. We were all so tired.
I
we
think
just laughed.
we were pretty much going to go dark on through January.
Okay, that was my understanding too.
Yes. So that's it.
Okay.
Where are we?
Anything more?
Thanks for all your efforts,
I'll say,
everyone.
Yeah.
You
This,
know,
this
but-
is the last meeting of this group, and we don't know what the future holds, but I want to thank everybody for their diligence. Again, I kept marveling at everybody's terrific work and expertise all for the last couple of years, or nearly 2 years. And
It's hard to
I can't
imagine
tell you how
it's
much I
been 2
appreciate it.
years.
Yeah.
It is.
We started right in the middle of COVID.
Yeah, that's right, and,
Carrying on wearing a mask.
and yeah, it's been terrific, and staff, thank you. Roger, thank you. Anna Maria and Laser, thank you as well.
Yeah.
We would have been dark if it hadn't been for you.
And thanks for your
Yeah.
guidance, Patrick, and I know you put a lot of time
Appreciate
into
you
it.
saying
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
lot of
will,
thought.
and as from staff's perspective, having been through that transition of the different process that we went through with COVID, I hope you know how much we've appreciated the direction that you've gone. You took this job seriously and really challenged us. And we were able then to take that and help guide the applications that were coming in. So there was an education process on our side where the bar was, and you kept raising it. So this was a good process, and I think it really stood for some real quality work out there.
Yeah, thank you, because I walk around town, I'm super proud of it, and I was pointing out to my husband, look, we
know-
did that, and we did that.
No, I was
That
gonna-
look-
I
doesn't
was
that
gonna
look
mention that,
good,
'cause I
right?
think we've made a difference, and
Yeah.
I think that's true, and the staff has been terrific to work with. I appreciate it so much.
And it's just, we've become a very cohesive group. We didn't know each other for the most part when we
Yeah.
walked
Yeah.
in the door. And I want to compliment my colleagues because everybody comes prepared and informed. And that is a rarity on a committee. And staff, you've been great to work
Yeah.
with. We've thrown things at you. We need this, we need that. And I hope that ultimately it's created an easier process. It wasn't easy necessarily getting there. And it's
Yeah.
been a pleasure working
Roger
with you.
doesn't know this, but I refer to everybody else as tuxedos, and I'm a pair of brown shoes.
Which is not at all
Which
the
we
case.
disagree with.
Yes,
Yeah.
because those
No,
brown
I- I
shoes
keep
keep
my-
us all running, so.
Yeah.
That's good.
So just in closing for
Yeah.
staff's comments, first of all, we encourage you all to apply for your position before the end of the year. And, we'll encourage those that you might think would like to serve. This is the time that the new appointments will be made. So, and then at this point, we have the only we don't have, I don't know if we have any projects coming up yet.
Well, we do.
Oh, yeah.
We are going to get a submittal hopefully this week for Ed's project at the corner.
Oh, really? Okay, good.
And then there is a multi-family property at the corner of Fifth and Oak that they just resubmitted their materials. So hopefully we can get it to a point where we can present it at the meeting in February. And then we received a submittal for short-term vacation rentals on Copenhagen.
Oh, yeah,
There's some
I saw
pretty
that.
major things coming through.
Yes, a lot of big stuff coming through.
Roger, what's happening in the parking lot across from the fire station?
Yeah.
Yeah.
City,
We're done.
so that's the city park.
Great.
It's just gonna be a city parking lot? What-
It's a city parking lot. We're in design right now for a project to pave it, to put in charging stations for the buses, for the San Ynez Valley Transit buses.
Yeah.
But for right now, the contract's pretty much done. I am gonna see if we can get a wooden post put up and a solar area light, because we've had some thefts with our buses
Oh.
parked there, a couple of catalytic converters stolen.
Oh, I see, sure.
Oh,
Yeah, so,
Yeah,
we're gonna try to get some lighting in there, but, we're done with the
Dark
parking lot for
sky
now.
compliant.
yeah. To wake those firefighters up
Yeah,
tonight.
yeah, there you go. But, so it is gonna become a city lot, for city vehicles, which will free up some space in some of the other lot 4 and some of the other lots as well. So for some city vehicles, there'll be some charging stations for those vehicles, for, upgrades to our fleet that will become, electric vehicles.
okay.
And then we're putting charging stations for the buses, because the bus fleet, it's, that's the direction we're headed as well.
Sure.
Is to go all
Sure.
electric for our bus fleet as well.
I had a quick question on, at St. George's project at the old bank, the Italian. It still has like a available sign on the front and stuff. Is he doing anything?
We haven't heard a change of plans.
But
I
it's
think
kind
they,
of nothing, I mean, it seems like nothing.
Yeah, planning commission's complete.
yeah, everything's done.
Yeah.
We'll be meeting with the architect
Yeah.
on the other projects, so we'll find out what their plans are for that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be good to get an update.
I do.
Well, one other thing that
Sure.
I'm looking to, if I can get my act together, maybe on the February meeting, bring forward a request for review for the type of roofing for the gazebo, because we're looking to re-roof the gazebo at Solvang Park.
Yeah,
So I'd like to get some input from you guys as far as what type of shingle, what type of wood shingle you'd like to see.
And there is no consideration to provide handicap access to the gazebo.
Not at this time.
Thank you.
what about lighting?
With the re-roof, there, we're going to change the lighting.
Good.
We've already purchased the lights. It's just a matter of getting them installed, but I wanted to do it
Doesn't
all at
make,
once.
yeah, it didn't make any sense while the roof was
Yeah,
not.
so we're going to get two area safety lights. So there'll always be just a constant little glow. And then as motion comes up, they'll come up a little bit. So that
Nice.
some, and then a couple other area lights for just lighting it for if at night. And then there'll be some event lighting as well, some spotlights. So if there's, if
Terrific.
we're having
Good.
Thanks for your good
performers
work.
like that. So-
Yeah,
Big position of responsibility
forward.
for us.
Yeah.
yeah.
There, I do have a few
Yep,
things.
please.
I wanted to say thank you all. Thank you. I've learned a lot from you. I am looking forward to continuing to learn from you. Hopefully, if you serve again. And if you do not, I'd love to get feedback from you all about what worked well, what didn't. How can we set future committee members up for success? What should orientation look like? All that kind of stuff. As Esther always says, by the time you're done, you know everything you want to do, or
No.
you know everything already.
You-
So
No, we'll know what we should
Yeah,
have known
there-
when we started. We
Yes.
won't know everything.
yes. So yeah. So it'd be helpful to learn from you all to be able to set them up a little bit more for success.
I would say just throw them into a ring with these two.
Right? I know. Our next meeting is February 16th. Chair Kavanaugh and I were talking earlier. City Council will be looking at appointments at their meeting on January 23rd. So stay tuned. There will be a change to our staff reports to the formatting because we're moving to an agenda management system, probably in the middle of next year, but you'll see changes to the format regardless. And then I also wanted to show you all, because you are, I think you all live in Solvang. Yeah, you all live in Solvang. How to provide public comment on the housing element. Laser, can you show my screen, please? Just before we go. So the website is plansolving.com. There is a menu bar for housing element update. So you click on that, and then the housing element is available here, where you can click here to download. You can provide comments via this green button on the side, or it's a little clunky. You can also draft it via Word. You can send it to me. And I think there was one other way to. Yeah, you can email it to me, or you can bring it in person if you want to, see my. Yeah. And that's it.
Okay, great.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sophia.
Final comments, anybody? Thanks again, everybody.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thanks, guys.
the- Appreciate it.
It's been a
And
real
I
treat
think
working
we did
with
make
you
a
all.
difference.
Dinner time.
And no, use the room until all the cookies are claimed.